And start streaming. Boom, 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 boom.
Jagger Demands is already getting in a fight with somebody.
Hey, I think we are. I think we are live here.
Oh,
Yep. I think we are live. How's it going, guys? Now, how do I make the chat show up on StreamYard?
so on the right, there's a little thing that says private chat live comments. You just have to click on live comments, and then you should be able to click on any individual comment, and it will pop it up on the screen. And hi, everyone. It's Lucifer Means Lightbringer. I'm streaming with Quinn today.
So, is it live? Yes, it's live. It's totally live.
It's totally live.
I had to check real quick. Yeah, I don't know how to make the comments show up on StreamYard. It's not working for me, but whatever. We're here. We're here. I can still see them. I think someone left me a super chat before this even started. Yeah, so someone said what Wisdom Minari just said, "What's up, Quinn? What's up? How's it going?"
What up?
So we're here because for some reason I rewatched season 8 of Game of Thrones, right? And it just brought up a lot of emotions and feelings of all different sorts and kinds. And I don't want to like spend a bunch of time like making a bunch of videos going back into Game of Thrones and hating on it. I really don't want to do that. So I decided to get like all of these like leftover emotions and feelings out. I'm just gonna get on here with LML, and then also my art director Mike Miller for my graphic novel Tadia is coming on here a little bit later on. He's gonna do some concept art for Tadia. We're gonna get on here and air out all the rest of my grievances and Dave's grievances, whatever he has to say about this whole thing.
Oh, I'm at peace. I'm at peace, brother.
You're feeling zen. You're feeling zen about it.
I
Yeah,
can do literary critique though, if that's what you're looking for.
yeah. I mean, there is. Before we get started, Dave, why don't you introduce yourself to the people? I'm sure
Hey,
a lot of them know who you are, but you know.
yeah, Quinn's calling me Dave. That is my real name. I'm
Oh,
Dave. I'm
LML.
also
Sorry.
known. No, you can call me Dave, dude. It's cool. We're friends in real life, man. I don't like to make people like carry on the pretense of calling me LML when they actually know my real name. But I am Lucifer Means Lightbringer. I have the Mythical Astronomy of Ice and Fire podcast. Lately, I've been doing cool stuff about Daenerys. I'm a big book loyalist. I did not like the show ending. That's kind of the premise of me and Quinn agreeing on stuff here. Actually, I think he's on this side of me. In any case, what I did is I hit the books. I didn't just cry about it on Twitter, although I did cry about it on Twitter. I hit the books. I went back and tried to figure out, where is Daenerys' story really going? What is King Bran, the Greenseer King? What is that really going to look like in A Song of Ice and Fire? So I've been doing videos lately. I got a series on King Bran. I got a series on Daenerys. And if you're unhappy with the ending and you either have faith in George or your faith is struggling and you want a little encouragement that things will be different, then check out my Lucifer Means Lightbringer YouTube channel. Drop a couple links here in a minute. But yeah, that's what I've been doing. Got a Daenerys live stream coming this Saturday, actually. I've been doing one book at a time. I've already done her Game of Thrones chapters and her Clash of Kings. This Sunday, Melanie Lot 7 will be with me to do Storm of Swords chapters. So we're going to cover her taking the Unsullied from the Masters and turning them against them and conquering Slaver's Bay / liberating. And yeah, that'll be a good one. So thanks for having me on, man.
See, people, you must have faith in George. And also, I can't. Winds of Winter has to be like one of the most anticipated books of like the past like 2 decades. It's like everyone's looking for this book. I don't want to.
It's set up to be the biggest palate cleanser
I
in
know, right?
fiction history.
Now, I don't want to get my hopes up too much because George R. Martin has like given a date before or a general time and then like missed it. But he is going to New Zealand pretty soon, and he just tweeted about this like a few days ago. And if you remember last year, he was like, I'll have something. He said he said it would be done by the time he got to New Zealand in 2020. So if that's any indication, The Winds of Winter is super close. And I couldn't be more excited. And you'll get a lot of content from me. And I'm sure the A Song of Ice and Fire community online here will have a uptick, in interest and people making content because of The Winds of Winter. Now,
So
hopefully it's good content and not.
Well, look, like what I mean by a palate cleanser is just, right after the show,
Yeah.
like I started talking about King Bran and Greenseer magic and stuff, and it was well received. But what I noticed is that people were just really emotionally burnt out and disappointed from the show, and they almost weren't ready to talk about any of the like lore or mechanics of the books. Like we just like people were just despairing, and so that's why I turned to the Daenerys stuff. But I see a comment here in the chat about potentially redoing season 8 if they had to do, not are they going to, but if we had to do it, where would you start? Well, what's interesting is that Netflix recently has done a really cool Game of Thrones reboot, and they made it all about Rhaegar and Ashara. I think it's really great. It's called The Witcher, but actually Rhaegar, the word reg means witch in High Valyrian, so it's actually just a trick. It's actually called the Rhaegar. And I did a whole breakdown of season 1, and I'm dropping the link in the chat right here. It's really great. I love Rhaegar.
Yeah.
Definitely. Sorry, I'll stop now. I'll stop carrying on. But it's a spoof. It's a Witcher Game of Thrones spoof video, but it's right there. So.
I think it's pretty funny personally, but yeah. Oh man, so where do we even start with Game of Thrones season 8? I guess we start at the beginning. Do you remember that first episode? I have it pulled up here. It was called Winterfell. And when I went back and I rewatched this episode, because I remember my reaction the first time. The first time I watched it, I was thinking, "Oh, nice! They went back and had all these references to the first episode, yada yada yada." But when I went back and rewatched it after several months, now I see that what this episode really is pure laziness. Like the apex of laziness, because they don't have any new ideas or new concepts. So they're taking all the same beats of the first episode of season 1 and putting them in this. And there's even like repeats of the same lines, the same shots. You've got the same like concept of like the little boy watching, and then someone being like, "Where's Arya?" and everyone's lined up meeting the king. And I was just like,
if you do it a little bit, it's subtle. If you do it like 20 times, then it's heavy-handed.
What it was really showing to me was that it's bankrupt of ideas. Is that by that point they were completely bankrupt of ideas and just phoning it in. And I always feel like when shows start referencing themselves, it's usually time that like it's time to like wrap it up. It's like the show's pretty much jumped the shark at that point. Like with Stranger Things, I mean, I like Stranger Things to an extent, but like season 2 of Stranger Things, it was already referencing season 1, and I'm like. You're right out the bat, like already, like I don't know, man. So I feel like when a show is doing that, it's not a good sign. And it's
So
really... Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Are you at a?
No, I was just gonna reiterate. It's indicative of the fact that they were just out of wind at this point. But
So I sort of took the last question in the chat and made it a joke with my Rhaegar video, but the question that's underneath there is having to do with the plot threads that are missing, that are different, or that could be reworked. So you asked where we should start, Quinn. Let's start with the loosening up the certainty that exists, that the books and the show are going to end the same. And what I mean by that is let's just consider some of the obvious differences we have already, namely Phagon, Euron, and the Night King. Between those three things, meaning that the show has Night King, the books does not. The book Euron is a crazy sorcerer, rising to be the villain of the final act, whereas on the show he's just a drunken pirate.
An idiot.
And then Phagon, obviously, is a major plot device. I mean, he kind of is more of a plot device than a character, but he's right in the middle of the King's Landing, Westeros, Dany conquest, Dany's relationship to other Targaryens, what Dany's relationship with Jon is going to be like. All of that stuff is going to happen with the Phagon plot first. So let's talk about those three elements and how the show could have been different or how those things changed the show. I mean, there's a lot. You see what I'm saying here?
Yeah. I mean, they erased Aegon. See, I think the erasure of Aegon plus the fact that Jon Snow's name is Aegon in the show raises kind of a red flag to me. It makes me wonder if they took some of those, things that Aegon is going to do and gave them to Jon Snow in the show. In the way, I mean, it's not out of the question because they have done similar things like this in the past, like taking other characters and merged them in the show with like more main characters. So I've always wondered about that. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, there's definitely it has to do with like certain pieces get farmed out to different ways. Like some of it goes to John, some of it disappears into the ether. Some of the things Danny might do or Cersei might do, but the main action that is missing is this double wave of Targaryen invasion of Westeros.
Uh-huh.
Because in the show, when Danny gets there, she runs right into the chaos of the aftermath of the War of the Five Kings and Cersei's misrule.
Uh-huh.
In the books, Fagon is already there. He's already starting his conquest. So what you're going to have is Fagon supplanting Cersei in King's Landing. And remember, he's supposed to be the Mummer's dragon that's on poles greeted by a cheering crowd. That's how Danny saw him in the House of the Undying, which means he's probably going to be popular. Mm-hmm. So picture Cersei fled to Casterly Rock and Fagon as a popular new king in King's Landing. That's what Danny's going to run into when she gets to Westeros. That's going to be a lot more complicated than just like, let's go kill Cersei.
Yeah, as opposed to the show, like, see, it makes a lot more sense that Danny gets the Westeros and then she's less welcome if they already have, the cloth dragon, Aegon, the Shining Prince, that's already rescued them. It's kind of like she's coming in too late. It's like, you're redundant. We've already been saved from the evil Mad Queen Cersei. As opposed to in the show where it's like, the people have every reason to, like, love her and to, like, totally help her, so it doesn't make sense that she's just coming in and burning them.
Right. That's yet another reason why that plot train wrecked so badly in the show, is because Danny had no reason to turn on the people of King's Landing, and she had every reason to believe that they would be happy to welcome her defeat of Cersei. So, like, it really just...
And it was bizarre because they were trying, in the show earlier, they had been trying to set up this whole thing where it's like, oh, the people of the North don't really follow Danny. They follow Jon. And I'm thinking, like, of course that's kind of like the case in the North. But then why is she taking these feelings and projecting them onto the people of King's Landing? It just because one group of people, like, doesn't necessarily, like, I don't know. Well, one of the really strange and bizarre. It was incomplete.
Yeah, one of the strangest things was the distrust of Danny in the North after she defeated the White Walkers. Like, Sansa's like, well, why should we trust her? Like, I don't know, Sansa. Maybe because she took the entire... I mean, I shouldn't even say Sansa because it isn't Sansa. It's like a sock puppet that D&D are putting their rape apologism into. I mean, it's...
Yeah.
I got stronger. If I couldn't have done that unless I was raped 14 times by Joffrey and... Not Joffrey, fucking... Ramsay. Anyways, I'm sorry. Rage, calming.
Yeah, I mean, show was...
They should have trusted Danny. Danny put everything on the line. It made sense when Jon trusted her initially, when she showed that she was willing to use her dragons like 2 seasons ago or whatever. I thought that kind of worked.
Yeah.
The idea that, like, Jon was, like, holding out, and once he saw Danny's character, that she was willing to fight for people, then he gave his allegiance to her. But for Sansa and the entire North to be distrusting of her after they saved the day, it doesn't make any sense.
And one of the things, I just want to say the show tried really hard to make everyone hate Daenerys. And one of the things that happens in that first episode was Daenerys tells Sam that his, like, brother and dad are dead, right? That's in the first episode, I think, or it might be the second one. It's one of them. But anyway, Sam's reaction to it makes no sense. It's like, your dad himself tried to kill you. Your dad said, I will kill you if you don't give up your right to inherit the land and go north. And then completely disrespected you and rejected you even after that when you were on your way to the Citadel. So Sam's reaction to finding out that his father was killed by Daenerys was ridiculous. He's so upset that I could see if she went in and killed his mom and killed his sister, just like slaughtered his whole family. But I mean, his dad and his older brother that are kind of like usurping him and don't even really like him and that he's never really liked anyway. I don't get why. That was really weird for me.
I would have bought the idea that he had a mixed reaction.
Yeah, I mean,
because Sam is tender, but that'll be one where if there is a death of Randall Tarley that Sam learns about in the books, I expect that to be some good writing that we'll see Martin explore his inner turmoil with that.
But yeah. In the show, you remember what happens? He immediately goes to Jon and is like, "Oh, she's not fit to rule. Like she's like crazy. Like what?
Well,
do you remember your dad? Like, hello, dude.
Well, that's kind of the point you're making through all this is that through in the first three episodes and somewhat in the end of last season, they're just ginning up artificial tension,
Mm-hmm.
and it forces their hand in all these plots, and so they're having they're all of a sudden the Northerners are racist against Danny and the Dothraki, and I mean maybe there'll be some of that, but like I don't know, it seemed contrived, and then the Sansa Danny tension was contrived, and the everybody talking about Danny and looking at her like she's already going mad when she hasn't done anything mad was contrived. So it's just, I mean, it just happens all through this whole season because they're forcing towards this ending that they want, and they don't know how to write towards an ending. I mean, that's the problem here.
You know, the forced nature of it all is what becomes like really jarring because you feel like you get to know these characters over like, I don't know, 5 or 6 seasons. And so when they start to like act in ways that are just completely ridiculous and uncharacteristic, it's super jarring. And everybody noticed it. Everybody noticed it. And you know what, I personally don't understand why Daenerys comes to the north and she's so shook by the fact that people don't immediately just love her and just like treat her like a goddess. Because you remember the scene where it's like she's like looking at John, and everyone's all like, "Oh, he rode a dragon. Who have you ever seen rode a dragon?" Even though he saw Daenerys on a dragon, and then he totally rode a dragon, literally the last season. But whatever. Like I don't get why she's looking at that like, "Oh my God, no one loves me." Is she that fragile? Like I never thought Daenerys was that fragile that she needs to be immediately loved every time she walks into a room. Like she
No,
lived through Karth and the waste, and like I mean she was begging for ships. Like it's not like she was her brother was the beggar king. I mean she was like she's been like literally homeless. I don't know. I don't. That was really bizarre.
yeah, Danny. Like I said, I've been doing a Danny reread, and the character that we have in the books is very different from the one in the show, all the way back to season 2 and 3. There,
Oh
the
yeah.
show is inserting scenes where Danny is threatening to burn cities. She's always making commands and being imperious. Where in the books, she doesn't make those threats. She's doing something way more thoughtful. We also get a ton of inner monologue where she's considering the nature of power, the nature of the rule, responsibility of rule, what the dragons will be like in Westeros, what the Dothraki will be like in Westeros, what the Unsullied will be like in Westeros. All these things that she's thinking about. And in the books, none of that is there. And then they're amping up the imperiousness and the demandingness. So the character that we have by the season 8 is really like it's been slowly drifting away from the book character, but it's actually been drifting more than you think.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time we get to the end, and DRD are like, yeah, well, it's the logical thing for someone to do. You know, she's been killing bad men, so now she's going to kill a bunch of innocent people. That's how it goes.
Oh
And then
God.
it's just like, what? But
And you see, I think you know, a big part of where they failed. I think they underestimated like their audience. So I feel like people know that when like Tyrion is talking about like, oh, we cheered when she burned those men. It's like who cheered? And no one but the so we know that's just you, and we know that's you, D&D. Like take off the mask. You're like talking and it's like so lazy and heavy-handed and it's not subtle at all, and it just makes you mad, right? It's infuriating because
and
it's
And Tyrion, the thing, and there's another, let's talk about another book to show character difference. Tyrion in the books, I mean, we've known for a long time that the show has been shining up Peter Dinklage's character. Well, that's just it, because if they look at him as Peter Dinklage and not Tyrion.
mm-hmm,
And Peter Dinklage is funny and charming and awesome and everyone loves him. But Tyrion in the books is very dark, especially by A Dance with Dragons. He's very dark.
mm-hmm.
So the idea that he's going to be the good angel on Dany's shoulder is absolutely just not what's going to happen in the books at all. Tyrion is very likely to encourage Dany towards her worst tendencies. It's Dany that is the one that's thoughtful and
Yeah,
cautious.
and
But
they make some pretty significant changes to Tyrion's character, like after he kills his dad, right in the show. And there was some conscious, I think, narrative decisions. So I always point to that scene in the whorehouse where in the book it's like a crying young girl, and he's does it, but in the show it's like no, I couldn't possibly. So it's like oh, no one wants to see Tyrion do a bad thing. We've got to make him perfect and good. Whereas Game of Thrones was once a show that was like heralded for having all these great characters, where everyone is like a touch of darkness and a touch of light, and you've got no one's all perfect and all good. But I mean, they stripped all the life from Tyrion. They stripped away everything that made him interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
Uh, and maybe it was they just aren't as smart as George R. R. Martin. Like George R. R. Martin comes up with these plots and these lines for Tyrion. And, the best parts of Tyrion always in the show. Oh, Mike is here. Mike is here. The best parts of Tyrion always in the show were the parts that George R. R. Martin, wrote. The parts that they translated directly.
Hey, Quinn, the people are asking for a tiny bit more volume on your golden pipes, buddy. So either move the mic a little closer or just turn yourself up a tiny bit.
Turn my gain up. How's that sound, guys?
Yeah, they're asking for like a 10 to 20% increase. So that's probably good.
Yeah.
I turned myself down a tiny bit. And hello, Mike from LoneStarComic.com. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you? What's up going on, guys?
We're talking Game of Thrones, dude.
I don't know this guy.
So this is my friend LML or Dave. Yeah. He is pretty much an
That
expert.
Lightbringer means Lucifer?
Lucifer means Lightbringer, yes.
Lucifer means Lightbringer.
Yeah, dude,
All right.
he's if people think that I'm like an expert on like a Song of Ice and Fire mythology, this dude is like crazy way more knowledgeable.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Right on. You have all my comics, right?
Well, I'm super excited to see what you guys are cooking up. I was one of the people that Quinn, I guess I got a little bit of an early heads up. A couple weeks early, I knew about it. But I was super excited to hear once Quinn told me that he had something like this brewing in the works. So
yeah,
I'm
cooking. It's
got
cooking.
my full-throated support, my friend.
Right on.
yeah, Mike actually did the covers for George R. R. Martin's comic books. So Mike, why don't you introduce yourself to the people real quick? Tell them what you're all about.
All right, if I'm loud enough. I am Mike S. Miller, 28-year veteran of the comic book industry, best known to Quinn's crowd and LML. Lucifer means Lightbringer. What am I gonna?
Yeah.
I need a shorter version of saying that.
LML works, so you can just call me Dave.
Dave, all right. As the artist of the Game of Thrones covers, the Clash of Kings covers, for the comics, by the way, and the Hedge Knight, Sworn Sword, and Mystery Knight graphic novels in total. But otherwise, worked at DC and Marvel for 28 years mostly, and best known in that world for the Injustice comics series, which I was one of the main artists on for about 6 years. And now I'm doing my own thing here, doing my own comic book called Lone Star. It's the first of an entire universe that I plan on building up over the next 10, 15, 20 years, or till I'm dead.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then, yeah, I'm helping Quinn shape the Tadia visuals and art direct the book in general. Be doing an alternate cover probably, or two. I don't know. We'll figure all that out down the road. And I have my own channel, Art of the Hero, with Mike S. Miller.
Indeed.
Probably put it in the description or something.
Yes, I will definitely do that. So how am I sounding now, guys? I switched up the volume a little bit. So how am I sounding? Am I sounding good?
Sound good to me.
Am I sounding good? I shifted things around.
Now Quinn and Mike are too low. Oh, come on.
Yeah, I'm hearing different things. I'm wondering if
Yeah, I'm waiting for the update once the delay is over. How is it sounding now?
Yeah, it takes about 15 seconds to come through.
Sounds good here. Someone said perfect. Someone said better. Everybody's saying good. Excellent. Here we go. I'm sorry about the mistakes in the beginning. Sorry about it being too low. Awesome.
All right. Oh, it's the chat is filled with happiness and affirmation. Okay.
Excellent.
Now we're freaking good. So I remember when the season first finished, Mike took some convincing that it was bad. Oh wait, when were you convinced that it was bad? You knew by like episode 3.
It took a minute. I just wanted to love it, and so I kind of I allowed the beautiful bedazzling to overcome plot holes until about the last 3 episodes. I was just like, I give up. I had to quit. It was just so bad. Yeah.
And by the way, Mike, don't feel bad. I got sucked back in for season 8 too. Even I was brutal to the show in previous seasons, and I was like, well, maybe this last season will be good. And as everyone knows, or some people know, they did the whole like the spiral corpse arms on the wall in the first episode, and it caught on fire, and that lit off all the symbolism buttons in my brain, and I thought they were doing symbolism, and they weren't doing symbolism, and I made all these videos about it.
Yeah, and you just reminded me about this bizarre Could you guys stop? This bizarre inconsistency about them bursting into flames when they hit fire. It's like, do they or don't they? It's like so inconsistent in the whole thing. It's like, yeah.
I
sorry.
mean, yeah, the inconsistency of like the White Walkers like bothers me so freaking much throughout the show.
Yeah.
Because like, you know, you have them presented one way in the beginning of the show. It's like they're portrayed as this unstoppable threat. Like the White Walkers at Hardhome are not the same White Walkers in that episode. What was the Beyond the Wall episode? Those are not the same White Walkers. Like you've got 6 guys in that episode, just like holding them off and just like taking them down. Like when you know these things were like, I don't know, man. It's like you set them up and it just fell so flat. Because you know, I think I know the reason that this happened. It was because at the core, and me and Dave talked about this, they really don't have any respect for the fantasy genre. You know, when it comes to the fantasy genre, you have to set up rules and establish like you have to establish what can happen and what can't. And those guys just either didn't know how, or they just really didn't have any interest in doing that. And that's what I'm leaning more and more towards. As more and more is coming out, as I like look at more of their statements, I think they just thought fantasy was silly and just thought it was a thing where it's like, you know, anything can happen and it's fine. They'll buy anything, you know, especially since in their words, they were trying to like make it for the football, you know, soap opera audience or whatever.
Yeah, but they wanted us to swallow the fantasy stuff, but they were the ones that want to get all the magic out of it.
I know, but see,
So,
Well, so
more
that's-
inconsistency.
So I think after the complete murdering of Daenerys' character, the White Walkers has to be the biggest fail of the last season, because it just like it's just simply a matter of keeping promises to your readers and your viewers. It doesn't have anything to do with the show canon. I mean the book canon and what they chose to adapt from the books. Right in the show in season 5, they gave us the Night King tied to the Weirwood tree. They showed us Children of the Forest using dragon glass. They implied that it was this big secret that
Like, why are you even
Bran
showing
really
us
needed
this?
to know, because he spent 5 or 6 seasons journeying north to that little cave and breaking his legs, all to get the magic knowledge just so he could find out the origin of the White Walkers. And then it turned out not to matter. All you needed was a Valyrian steel sword, stabby, stabby, and they die. It didn't matter how they were created. It didn't matter why. None of that mattered. And so when you make a promise to your viewers, like this information is important because Bran has worked really hard to get it, and then you don't have it pay off, it feels dumb.
But
And
are you
that's what
talking about setups that George did that D&D just didn't have the
No,
skill
I'm
set
just
to
talking
wrap
about
up? Or
purely
you just
inside
talking
the
about the
context
show?
of the show.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, there was things that they set up that they didn't even follow through with. It's like, why are you even doing this? Because the way they did the Children of the Forest flashback things, it doesn't necessarily match the established canon. They were doing their own stuff. Like George R. Martin had already said, for instance, that Benjen wasn't Cold Hands.
Cold Hands.
I mean, they changed a lot of stuff, and then they were just like, I mean, why are you even showing this if it's not gonna be relevant? Why are you even showing us his origin story if you're not gonna make him a character and not make him say anything? I did a whole video on the Night King. I'm sure people have seen it, but it's just so stupid to me, and I don't understand how you do this. Like, as everyone,
Let me ask you this, Quinn.
Go ahead.
Do you remember in the run up to season 8, they were using the "For the Throne" tagline, and they were showing all the stuff about they're doing it all for the throne.
for the throne,
And
yeah.
you and I and other people rightfully raised our hands and say, hey, isn't that the exact opposite of the message that both the books and the show have been driving home for all these seasons, which is that the throne is a false prize? What you should be really worried about is the White Walker threat. We've been hearing that since season 1, show and books. And then going into season 8, we were worried about that. We're like, kind of seems like they don't understand the themes. And the apologists, well, I won't use any names, but this show apologists, they scolded us and said, oh, it's just the marketing department making a slogan. You're taking it too serious, bro. But no, the show actually did that. They actually made the Iron Throne the most important thing. The White Walkers were not important at all. They were completely sidelined. And I mean, you don't have to get everything right from the books, but that's the whole point of the Iron Throne and the Game of Thrones is that it's this false prize and this narcissistic game that the kings play that makes the people suffer. What we actually need to do if you want to be king is save the people by taking care of the White Walkers. And like, just to miss that message in the final season is a travesty.
You know, maybe if that wasn't a major theme of the book, they could have slid by. But that's literally something that's brought up throughout the entire book series and set up in the first book more than once. And like, George R. R. Martin does not do something like multiple times if it isn't a big part of what he's trying, if it isn't a big part of the greater whole of the idea that he's trying to express. You know what I mean? So
I think there's a problem here with the setup, because they were setting up. I personally, I hate it when stories have multiple climaxes, but you kind of had this setup where you had to, right? You honestly, the whole White Walker thing should have been its own season, right? Yeah. And then the aftermath, where we have to actually deal with King's Landing and all that fun stuff, should have been like picking up the pieces, trying to cobble back up, your survival method, and then, oh crap, there's still somebody who wants to take advantage of this situation where we've been depleted so badly, and then that's a whole nother season.
Yeah.
So Mike, before you jumped on, we were talking about. Have you read the books, Mike?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So we were talking about the idea of Phagon and the huge. Forgive me, I had no idea, but yeah. So the presence, and I say Phagon. We don't know if he's actually fake. Maybe he's real. Maybe he's not. But young Griff, whatever. He's very likely to take King's Landing from Cersei before Dany ever gets there. So in the books, what I'm picturing is that Cersei's probably going to end up running back to Casterly Rock when that happens. And so Dany's going to confront Phagon in King's Landing. There'll be some sort of engagement. I think Dany will come to the edge of like trying to conquer and using her dragons that way, realize that it's a mistake and that she needs to go fight the others. I think her plot will go north and will end against the others. And what I think will happen is that basically what's going to happen is that Cersei will slink back into King's Landing, just like Saruman slinking back to the Shire in Lord of the Rings. And it will be the Starks and King Bran who comes down and clears Cersei out at the end. Dany will already be done by then, because her climax will probably come against the White Walkers. Mm-hmm. I don't think she's going to come back and fight King's Landing after the White Walkers at all. That's why it doesn't work to have those double climax, like you're saying. Like, the energy of it was wrong.
Well, we know what George R. R. Martin, we know what he was going to do in the end after like it was all finished. He was always going to go back and be like, okay, so this is what happens to everything. Because he's made that critique of like Lord of the Rings and stuff, even though he loves Tolkien. He's made that critique of, it's like, oh, you never know what happened to Aragorn and how he ruled and what happened to all the leftover orcs. So I do expect like a few chapters like at the end where it's like, okay, so this is how this got settled, and this is what happened to that, and this is what happened to all that. So
it's gonna be another Feast for Crows, like tacked on.
I mean, like George R. R. Martin might get out of hand. Like he's like I gotta write a whole new book for like the end.
Yeah.
Just real quick, you got a couple of little super chats.
Yeah. I was gonna get to those.
It's gonna be called A Meal for Small Folks, and it'll be like, what?
I like that.
500 people need to hit that like button. I concur.
Yes. Like if you're watching now, go ahead and like. Hold on.
Look at your fancy setup, Glenn.
Count Valerian of House Tatter sent in a super chat. Mazor, hi.
I'm pulling them all up now.
Okay, cool. They disappear after a while.
Quinn's changing it up, so
they'll be on the thing I did.
You look more like you're in control of a starship now.
I am. This is
number one
Enterprise. That's another thing I'm super excited about. Picard. Like I'm so ready for that. God,
thanks for swaying me off of being so irritated by that political crap.
Okay, let me see. We got a community.
So that's another one. So Chris Fine brings up the idea of Jon fighting the White Walkers. D&D kind of made it sound like, hey, we just decided to have Arya do it. So very much sounds like a D&D choice there. I would think that Jon will have some sort of climactic battle against the others. The prologue of A Game of Thrones with Waymar facing the others is very much a foreshadowing of something that Jon's going to do against the others. Waymar is a strong Jon parallel. So yes, of course, Jon will. There isn't a Night King in the books currently. Maybe there will be, but he'll do something important with the others. Yes, it's not going to be.
Everything George is setting up is for Jon to be, I don't know.
It's the sword, man.
Or whatever, but
look, that's the thing. Dany can't fight with a sword. I mean, like, she can do the dragon thing, but like, we got to have somebody that's like got the sword and that's like awesome with it. But that was, and in the show, it's like even worse. It's a travesty.
And he's got to get Dawn.
Yeah, but in the show, it's
before
like
this happens.
People don't realize. I mean, I think people do realize, but they didn't realize how much of a travesty it is to put the great other in a physical body. And then to have Jon Snow there, and I give him all these skills. Like, Jon Snow did we forget Jon Snow's badass? Like, he was at the Night's Watch, like, beating everybody, like, training everybody. He can fight. So to, like, have it, to have the Night King, and to have him have a sword, and have Jon Snow have a Valyrian sword, and to have these two not fight, it just doesn't make any kind of narrative sense.
And let's take at least a quick moment to ponder the nature of Dragonfire not melting the Night King, but steel forged in Dragonfire, which gets all of its magic from the Dragonfire.
Well, it is spell forged,
Yes,
so it's the spell, whatever the particular spell that kept them from crossing the wall was the same spell apparently that forged Valyrian steel.
You know what? He should have had better armor. Dude should have had better armor. But let me get these super chats. Okay, so
I shall bring forth Foamkeeper.
Yeah, Alexander Salmos said, Dune E. Villeneuve. Indeed.
It's a sword off.
Oh, sword off. There's a sword off going on. Count Valerian of House Tatter says, Maester Ahai. Mary Evans says, Mike, do you have digital copies for Lone Star? I think you do, don't you, Mike?
I do.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're in that particular link, but go to Indiegogo and look for my other campaign. I think they're on there.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. What else happened in this stupid season? Oh yeah, so I love one of the things that I actually did like, kind of. I don't know. Maybe I just like cat stuff. I kind of like the stupid feud between Dany and Sansa for some reason. I like not the whole feud, but I did like that scene where Dany is like trying to put the charms on Sansa. And Sansa's like, I'm a woman, you can't do this. Like, I'm not Jon. I'm not Dario. Like, you can't manipulate me with your womanly wiles, Daenerys. But that was interesting. But also, I understand, to an extent, right, being mistrustful to an extent, of a Targaryen, of Daenerys, and not being fully trusting.
All right.
Well, sure, I mean, trust but verify, right?
Yeah. But Sansa, I don't know. But what I'm trying to get to here is, like, I also don't buy that Sansa is so cunning and smart. Like, in the same way that it's like, I don't feel like Arya really earned to be as
But
awesome.
Quinn, Arya said she's the smartest person she knows.
I guess. I mean, okay, Arya should be some degree of badass, but she should not be like crazy ninja level. And in that same way, like Sansa, maybe she's gained some skills, maybe she's gotten smarter, but she should not be like, I'm the smartest woman in the world and fit to rule, and I know that the leather should be pressed into that armor because no one's doing it right.
No, all she should have done is learned how to be manipulative by Littlefinger.
Hey Quinn, I got so your volume seems to be fluctuating for the listeners, but it's not fluctuating for me on our connection. So I'm wondering if it's something on your soundboard, or I don't know, but they're complaining again. I can't hear you, man.
No, it might be because I'm just getting too far away.
I'm gonna mute here and I'm gonna listen on YouTube for a minute. So talk and I'll check it out.
Let me see.
Well, we got lots of people checking it out. They just say they can't hear Quinn.
Now that I'm looking at it, it does look lower. Let me look at this mic sound.
So another thing that somebody in the chat wanted to ask about is Jon's resurrection.
My mic went down to like 18. I'm just gonna leave this window open so that I can watch it.
Okay, yeah. So there is a setting that's getting changed accidentally. Okay,
yeah.
Cool. So, but real quick, let me introduce the Jon topic, because this is something I've seen brought up a few times. And John's resurrection is really cheap in the show. He gets his hair washed, and he gets a quick prayer, and the dog looks at him, and then he just kind of gets back up, and that's that. And then, like, the annoying thing is that they don't even address the idea of whether or not people think that he's resurrected. Like, most people don't even talk about it. We don't know if, like, what the Northern Lords think of him being excused from his Night's Watch vows. They don't understand. Well, technically he died, and so he doesn't have to serve anymore, but they don't talk about that. But the main thing is that John's going to be resurrected a lot in a much gnarlier way in the books, right? Like, the whole thing is the skin changer mechanics. And I'll just give the quick rundown for anybody who's not clear on this. But skin changers, when they die, their spirit goes into their wolf. That's what we saw, or their animal, whatever it is. So John just got stabbed in the snow. His spirit is presumably just gone into Ghost. It will stay inside of Ghost. What's going to happen is gradually his spirit will merge with the wolf spirit, or his spirit will diminish and become subsumed to the wolf spirit. It's described a couple different ways. But there's some sort of time on that. And so it seems like if someone were to have a magical way to get John's spirit out of the wolf inside of like maybe a week or something, a few days, get it back into the body, that you might get a better resurrection than Lady Stoneheart or Beric, because the wolf body is like a soul jar. You know, a skin changer has that advantage that a non-skin changer doesn't have. But the point is, he's going to be messed up. He might be merged with his wolf spirit, so he's going to be wolfy and undead. You know, like, it's going to be. I've speculated he might have the white hair like Elric. You know, instead of.
No, it'd be cool if he came back feral.
Well,
Yeah,
I always
feral,
thought.
exactly, yeah.
I always thought. Well, it's obvious that Jon Snow is inside a ghost, but I always thought that there was. I don't know if this is going to happen. I thought there was a potential for, like, if they were to bring Jon back, that maybe he wouldn't even be brought back in his own body. That it would almost be like, oh, this body is actually too messed up and mangled, and it has been too long to bring him back. So they would, like, use somebody else and put him inside of there.
No, Beric was chopped in half, wasn't he?
Was he chopped
He'll
in
be
half?
back in his body. His body might be all messed up. That's the whole thing about the Jon Dany baby. Like, that's not going to happen. Jon and Dany are going to identify with each other because they will both be, like, sort of futureless. Like, Dany knows she can't have children. Jon's, like, undead. Their destiny is to throw themselves at the White Walkers and ride off into the Winterset or the Sunrise or whatever it is. I you know, Jon might end up roaming the North as a new Cold Hands figure.
And we remember what George said about the people that were brought back, like, not too long ago. He was like, you know, they're undead, their blood isn't flowing and all that. So I think the way he's really thinking about this is they are dead. Like, they are in fact dead, but being, like, sustained by, I don't know, like the fire of R'hllor or whatever it is. Oh, speaking of the fire of R'hllor, let's talk about how useless the fire of R'hllor was.
Count Valerian says Jon did change. He was stupider after the resurrection.
Indeed, he lost brain cells. Like, a bunch of his brain cells died.
That's what happens. You cut off oxygen for long enough, you know.
Oh, yeah,
accurate.
for sure, yeah.
Supposed to go, so
It was accurate.
understandable.
Yeah. But, you know, oh, god dang it, in that freaking Long Night episode, I wanted so much to like that Melisandre stuff. Like, when she was walking out of the shadows, I was like, that doesn't make any sense, but I don't care. It looks cool. She's walking out of the shadows. And then when she's like saying the words to light the oryx, I'm just like, yes, do it. They all lit on fire. But it's like, did they think about this scene before they did it, right? Because I have no idea what their plan
No,
was.
she should have walked out of the shadow with a whole freaking cadre of red priests.
Right? Where was why did she even? It doesn't explain why she went back to Volantis. Like, what were you even doing there? Like, I thought she was coming back a red priest, but it's like, oh, I came here to light these things on fire for a little bit.
Yeah, it was a lot of Mike, you hit on this earlier. When you first watch the Long Night episode, especially, there's a lot of things that impress you just for their presence. You know, like Melisandre walking out of nowhere, the dragon fighting in the clouds. I mean, you know, Jon and Dany finally using their dragons in war together. Even when Arya leapt out of nowhere and stabbed the Night King.
It's cool.
Like, it was exciting. I was in a room full of people at a con and everyone was like, ah!
Yeah.
But then like 10 minutes later, you're like,
But wait, what?
wait a minute.
I call it the Man of Steel effect, because I went in and I watched the Man of Steel in the theaters and I loved it. And then I sat down and I started thinking about it, and these plot holes just got bigger and bigger and bigger as the more I thought about it. I'm like,
It's
they
like, wait,
suckered me.
this actually doesn't make any sense
Yeah.
whatsoever. You know, they thought they were clever with that, like little, these eyes you'll shut forever. That Melisandre thing, and then like one of the eyes was blue. She said one of the most common eye colors, so that must mean the
Yeah, she's
Night
just
King,
purple.
right? That would have been more interesting. I mean, yeah, like give me a bit, like, because she said three eye colors, like she said three different eye colors, and they're all just eye colors that people have commonly.
Yeah.
So it's like it's not much of a prophecy, right? And you know,
Some are gray, some are hazel.
but do you know what they were doing with that scene initially with Melisandre? That was just a replacement for the ghost of Highheart from the book. When she says to Arya in the book, "I see a darkness in you," and in like, well, she doesn't say, she sees, she says, "I see you, wolf child, blood
Correct. Yes.
child."
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Milo, they took it in the show and gave it to Melisandre. "I see a darkness in you," yada yada yada. So that's what that was supposed to mean. That wasn't a prophecy about Arya being the one that like saves the day in the end. And
Well,
rips off Lord
the
of the
way they
Rings.
played it, it wasn't real. It didn't. It might have been prophecy in earlier, but this was like sort of her signal, right? It's like blue eyes.
I
Blue eyes,
guess
go, do
the
blue,
way
do.
I but you know the way I saw it was because in that scene initially when Arya and Melisandre first met, she says we'll meet again, and then she gets there and she's like, "I said we'd meet again," so I knew about this whole time. But I'm like, but if you knew about it the whole time, then it's like,
Why
were
did you come back alone?
Stannis?
For one
And
thing.
why have you been doing like what is all this? Like why have you been? What is your deal? Like I don't know. That's so that prophecy doesn't make any sense. I don't know, man. God dang it, Melisandre. And the trench lighting thing was stupid. I watched it again. I'm like, she's walking so slow. It's like, God dang it. Walk faster, Melisandre. Like they're about to get through.
The entire mechanics of that battle fall apart pretty quick when you think about it. Like the entire idea of sending out cavalry against the whites doesn't make any friggin' sense at all. But let me ask you this: it just to keep it from going too negative or whatever. What kind of things do you think Melisandre will do in the end game in the books, starting with her involvement with Jon's resurrection or Shireen? And then do you think she'll be alive by the time we get to the last battle? And what do you think she'll do there?
You know, I always saw Melisandre as like making some kind of sacrifice of herself because I do think that she really does want to stop the darkness. I think that's pretty clear from her A Dance with Dragons chapter that she's sitting here thinking like, oh, like this is really troublesome. How am I going to do this? And she's really trying her hardest to find, I mean, the one, I guess, the savior. So I could see if the time came and there was like a moment where like something needed to go down and she needed to, I don't know, create a particularly powerful spell. I could see her making a sacrifice and giving up herself in order to make that happen. Because I feel like she already wants to die anyway, because she's like, I've been alive for a long time.
I actually thought that was what the show was going to do. When she lit the trench and she had the fire in her eyes, I was like, oh, dude, she's going to burn herself out. Look at all that fire. She's just going to burn herself out. And that kind of would have been cooler. But they needed her to save Blue Eyes. And
Yeah.
so.
No, I think if it happens in any sort of similar way, George probably will bring all of. If she goes to Volantis, she's not going for no freaking reason. She's not going for vacation. She's bringing back the people whose sole purpose,
The fiery hand.
right? Yeah, the sole purpose of this entire religion is to fight this war, and she like, it's just me.
Mike, one time we were having a religions discussion roundtable on my YouTube channel, and we were speculating about what the potential for the problems if the R'hllorists and the Fiery Hand get to Westeros and run up against the Sparrows and all the
Yeah.
the Warriors' Sons and all those people. Like,
Am I
just a
low?
whole
Can you
bunch
guys
of
hear me?
Radical, just like cult-like believers of different, very opposite faiths.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be interesting. But the Sparrows do they exist anywhere else in Westeros besides King's Landing?
I mean,
Well,
it's
sort
kind of a
all
new
flocked to
movement.
King's Landing.
It's the movement is just now like gaining traction, like in A Song of Ice and Fire. So it's like it's kind of like the Martin Luther thing in real life, I guess, because it's like you've got like I guess the Faith of the Seven,
All right.
who are basically like Catholics, And then you got the sparrows who come and they said, like, let's get rid of all this like extra stuff and fancy stuff. Let's just strip it down. And so I guess it's just a movement that's been gaining traction in Westeros recently because people are hurting, right? And so they need something to blame, and they blame like the crown and sin and like incest has made it into the royal bed and all this like stuff like that. So that movement is gaining traction. But
Yeah, and it's a religion where they are obviously embracing poverty, which would appeal to the peasant class. The
problem is that the faith has very clearly labeled R'hllor as a demon, and all of his worshippers as demon worshippers. So there's not going to be any tea and crumpets.
No,
they run into each other.
No,
we'll see.
But yeah, it.
But there you go. Because if they do win that battle up in the north, and then the army of all the Red Priests are part of the army coming south, and then the faith is part of Cersei's whole shtick. Yeah, that could play up. That is something that seems like something George would do.
Mm-hmm. You know, and back to the I guess the R'hllor thing in the show. Again, I don't understand why they even set it up that she was going to Volantis, right? Like, why did they even say that? Because it's never addressed. Because she's like, I got to go back to Volantis for one thing. Like, if you're not gonna bring Red Priest with you, I thought she'd bring like some magical object or some new piece of information, or like something like, oh, I've gone to Volantis and we have this great secret as to like how to like help with this. But it was nothing, and I just don't get it. I got 2 super chats in a row. Thank you guys so much for your super chats, by the way. They really help support this channel. I don't stream often, so it's nice to see you guys really support me. Capricorn says, hey, Quinn, I love the channel. Question, whose character was assassinated the worst in Season 8? Isn't that obvious? Daenerys. They completely killed Daenerys in Season 8. Like, both figuratively, literally, in every way, they assassinated Daenerys' character. Like, what would you say, Mike? As far as, like...
George R.R. Martin.
Right? And, like, and people are mad at George R. Martin because of this season. Like, you can't get mad at George because of this. Yeah. This is David.
The character assassinated him. That's
exactly. And, you know, they actually did try to blame a lot of Season 8 and the problems on George. Like, they would say things like, oh, this was George's idea that Bran would be king, or George's idea that this and that and that. And I'm like, just accept the fact that you guys, even if the core of the idea was his, you effed it up.
Yeah. I mean, I could imagine George, right? Because if Dany's flipping, and it sounds like it's most likely she's going to, the way George will write it will actually make sense and be shocking and be painful in a way that's not doesn't feel like you have a knife in your back, but just that your heart's been betrayed or whatever.
One of my super.
I actually feel strongly that the setup, Mike, is for Dany to like almost step into that trap and then not, because like I was saying that the Iron Throne represents this false prize and the real threat is the others. That's more true for Dany than anybody else. She's the one with the dragons, so like she really has to see through the King's Landing trap and take her dragons north. And like I said, I think that's going to be the last move for her. But she may cause a lot of destruction before she realizes, hey, this isn't the right thing to do. I just wanted to recognize in the chat, a bunch of people are saying Jaime's character was murdered pretty hard. That's very true. I don't know if you can pick one, but they really didn't understand his character.
No.
They hosed a lot of characters in season 8.
Nikolai was very upset about it. Like, did you see that interview where he was like, I've been arguing with him since season 4. Oh, dang it. I lost that super chat. There it is. It said, incest has been in the Red Keep for 3 centuries. And yeah, I mean, they tried to take them down, the Targaryens, back in the day. Like, it's never been okay. It's just like the Targaryens just forced it to be okay during the time that they were ruling. But they're not just going to let, like... And you know, that's just also the nature of things. Something can be going on for a long time before people get riled up about it suddenly. Like, a lot of times, people just get riled up about something. I mean, the public, at least, will just get riled up about something, and then it'll get, like... And it becomes a thing where it was never a thing before.
Yeah.
But it was always an issue.
Going back to Dany, it's not even just the writing, it's the way that the scenes were directed and stuff. Like, when she snaps... I mean, I could have directed that or written that moment to at least have some sort of like tension and some sort of an emotional twisting of the guts, but instead it's just like focus, and go kill everybody.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's like, what, bells ringing is setting you off? What is the deal here? It was so poorly executed, even though, golly, so much talent involved in this show. So beautiful. The freaking cinematography was so the effects, everything. And then it's like you have this crap writing and directing that just kills it. And that's
you could really tell that they didn't even know what to write. Like John's dialogue,
my queen,
just the last 2 seasons, it tails down to the point where he's hardly saying anything in these like pinnacle climactic scenes of season 8, and he's just like got 3 words and then just stands there. You're literally watching him, like waiting for him to talk, and he just like stands there, and you're just like, oh, they didn't know it right.
He's basically Batman.
It's like,
okay, stand there and brood.
A lot of people.
Is one thing, but
I was gonna say, since Mike brought up Daenerys, a lot of people point out in that Dany scene when she's killing everybody that one of the things that they did that kind of exposes that they're kind of like hack writers was they took you out of Dany's perspective, right? They don't show you what she's feeling or like her face when she's doing all that. She just becomes an object of destruction for the rest of the episode, and so all you see, it's like from far away, Dany destroying everything. So you don't have a chance to like, you don't have a chance to emotionally connect. You don't get to like see what she's feeling. You know what I'm saying? So what's going on? Like so is she like on the back of the dragon like screaming Dracarys? Just like maddening, like screaming, kill everybody? Like what's happening?
I picture her on the back of the dragon, just like Elsa, She's like, no, it's bad.
She seemed pretty happy afterwards, so maybe she was like smiling because she's all like,
right,
yes,
like I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah,
but really they'd been diminishing her and her just as a character, like the whole season, like all the scenes with Jon and like the scene where she's just kind of sitting there watching Jon having fun. It's just like diminishing, and then just no personality when she just flips a switch and turns into a psycho crazy person. It's bad storytelling.
They set her up for so long as like this divine, almost goddess type hero, messiah figure. And I always say Frank Herbert, Dune, he does that. He sets Paul up as this messiah figure and then he undoes him. But then in Dune, it takes an entire book to see the downfall of Paul, a whole book, and then a whole other book to talk about like the ramifications of it and to really get into the nitty-gritty of it.
But they're setting it up all the way through the book. He's constantly worried about going into this jihad.
Yeah, he's like, jihad, like this is gonna happen, and I don't want
I gotta make it right here because otherwise this is the only way I can not become a tyrant.
Yeah, but in Game of Thrones, it's like, it's just like whatever, it can happen in the season. Because we don't understand the characters, which they admit it to. So me and LML actually have like a little podcast thing coming out in like a couple days, right? It's about 40 minutes long. We're going through all those. We're talking about their interview and all the messed up crap they said. They admit it to not understanding the characters. They use the actors to define the characters. It's like they would hire an actor, they'd like him, and the actor would just define the character for them.
And the ironic thing about that is that George just bangs on and on and on about the heart and conflict, which is just another way of saying that the characters need to be at the center of your story writing. The story needs to revolve around the choices and the decisions of the characters, which come from their conflicts. That's what should drive the story. And for them to that's why it's such a big problem for them to lose sight of the characters from season to season in such a way, because it just no longer makes sense. And it's just a series of events and happenings. There's a cool question in the chat. I'm not sure if it was an accident or not. It was posted like 18 times. So
okay.
I texted the person and said, try to fix it. But the question was good, which was about the Dany's prophecy: to go north, you must go south; to go west, you must go east. So think about that. That tells you where she has to go right there. She has to go west and she has to go north. Well, why would she need to go north? Well, because to fight the White Walkers, of course. So the prophecy means that like basically you're not ready to go there yet. You have to go this way first, and then you can go that way. You can't run right to your goal. You have to do these other things first. There are more specific ideas, like she goes east to Karth. I think she's going to use the glass candle to like visit Ashai and talk to Quaid and get more magic knowledge or something. But eventually she's going to go back east and go back north. That's the objective. Mm-hmm. And tied in with that prophecy is also the dream she has of fighting the others. There's one where she dreams that she's Rhaegar at the Trident, but she's on a dragon and the enemies are armored in ice. And she's melting them with the dragon fire and says, this is how it was meant to be. So there's definitely lots of clues. There's more, but there's lots of clues to what Dany's ultimate destination is when that's north.
Mm-hmm. I still think there could be an eastern pass, but we'll see. Yeah, I'd like to see it. I mean, there's little breadcrumbs, you know.
Well, dude, I put a White Walker in the Forest of Qohor for you. That's how he got there. He took that northern passage around. I was thinking.
I mean, because it is a bit crack pottery. But you got the 5 forts and you got the Grey Waste and no one knows where it is and it's like a frozen desert. Maybe there's a connection here. You got the legends of something. The Line of Knights minions. The Line of Knights minions. And if you look at maps, right? You see if you look at the maps and you look at the Grey Waste and the 5 forts and the way it's drawn on the map, it's drawn exactly the same way as the wall is in the north. And it just seems that's a barrier too. Like, look at that. You've got the, I forget what it's called, the Scarlet Sea, the Blood Sea, wherever that little. There's like a Blood Sea, and then there's the Mountains of the Morn, and then the
Check your volume, Quinn.
Huh?
Volume.
Oh, is my volume?
Again.
Is my volume good? There's the Mountains of the Morn, but anyway, the point is, it's blocked off, and I feel like it's like. In the north of Westeros, it gets super narrow, so you just need the wall, and then they've got the mountains or whatever to block it. But over there, it's just like you've got mountains on one side, and you've got that sea over there, but you've got that little space in between. So it's like that's where we built the forts to keep watch.
So Stephanie McNamara has a cool question. She's pointing out that there was other ways to bring in drama, like such as Dany wanting to get rid of serfdom. Because it's like slavery, and that's been her entire arc is liberating people and bringing justice to the downtrodden. That should offend the nobles of Westeros and make them afraid of losing their grip on power. You saw that a little bit when they were picking the king, and Samwell's like, "Hey, what about like if people vote?" Everyone's like,
"Democracy."
The question for both you guys would be, what do you think George is going to do? Because he loves this sort of thought, and seems like there's a lot of things building towards a more democratic Westeros or the abolition of the Iron Throne.
Right. Like, is he going to bring in sort of a Magna Carta moment?
How is Dany's like liberation ideology going to impact with the nobles of Westeros? And what do you think George would do with that?
I've actually talked about this a lot. I've always seen there to be like some like move and a shifting in like the political structure of Westeros. Because like I said, it's set up from book 1 that it's like, oh, you got the Game of Thrones, the High Lords, as Varys says, playing the Game of Thrones, while everyone else suffers underneath them. And, just throughout the books, you really see it in the Feast of Crows, just how, Westeros has been ravaged by the War of the Five Kings. Remember in the Clash of Kings, Dany sees, like, the dwarves raping the woman, and it's meant to represent the woman is the body of Westeros, and the dwarves are the Five Kings. So you got the High Lords that are really destroying everything. So I've always thought that an element in the books that has to happen when it comes to the battle against the others is you've got to have the people of Westeros being involved in fighting for themselves and standing up and fending for themselves. And then after all is said and done, who knows who's going to be dead? So from that ashes, I mean, maybe something new can be built, like a different way of going about things. Because this feudal system, I mean, can't really be allowed to continue. And they even kind of bring that up in the show a little bit, like the break the wheel stuff, which is kind of funny because they abandoned it, like Dany's saying it. But I feel like that's where it's leading to, for sure. That's what I.
And I also think that the King Bran thing is going to be so different too. I think that a lot of the validity of King Bran will lie in the fact that he isn't going to have children and won't have a lineage. And the idea that he can use all this knowledge of the Weirwood Net to sort of have a Jaehaerys-like reign where we build more infrastructure, We make new laws that are more just. We abolish old laws that are unjust, like the First Night that Jaehaerys and Alysanne abolished. And by the end of Bran's reign, I could see it transferring, as someone was asking, what could come next? Well, how about something more like a Congress or like a Senate, or, something where you have regional factions and representatives? That's kind of the beginning of a democracy. And of course, each region, there's still the ruler of each region could be a bad monarch or whatever. But the first thing is to get rid of the king and start decentralizing. So we could see something like that starting to take place in Bran's reign. I think.
Is there in the farthest histories of the Westeros? Because I haven't read like Fire and Blood and the history stuff. Is there a Rome? Is there a Senate somewhere in the history of this planet that could, because that's where they got the ideas for separating powers away from the monarchy in and of itself, reducing the totalitarian nature of
the examples that we have are the Ironborn and the Night's Watch, who both choose their leaders in some sort of election type substance. In Essos, there's a lot of precedent, and Dany has been all over Essos. Like in Pentos and other places, they have triarchs and they have limited rule, 3 people sharing the rule. So there are some examples of that.
Okay, that's interesting, because what you would need is at the end to have some sort of like I said, I call it a Magna Carta moment, where they can figure out that you can release total power from one person and just sort of let it dissipate, but you still have those different levels of government, like executive, and obviously they're not going to end up with our former government. But
don't you think George is going to do something with this though, Quinn? I mean,
I think he would be interested in moving it in that direction, but I don't think he's going to be, he's not going to end up doing a whole book on it. It's just going to be like, we're going to plant the seeds of a more democratic.
Aragorn's tax policy question.
I think it's even like symbolized in the show with the destruction of the Iron Throne. And that was something that I always thought would happen in the book, like the Iron Throne dying. I mean, that's what that means, right? Like no more of this like fighting over this throne, and no more like kings, essentially. I mean, because that's one thing, that's a part of the books too, right? Like the different kinds of kings. Good
well,
kings,
it's so many things, because before the Iron Throne, before the Targaryens came in, you had
foolish
5
kings,
and they weren't always warring with each other, right? You had different states, just like Europe has different countries. They can eventually work together. They can form a greater union. But at that point, are they going to elevate somebody to be their president? I don't think so. You're just going to break it down to more local, centralized or decentralized, localized government. And you could do that through kings. You can do it through lords. You can do it through whatever. I don't think they're ever going to set up for an actual democracy, though.
I just think that George is going to do something. Like he'll explore it at least a little bit, simply because of his quotes about Aragorn's tax policy and wanting to know what it was. So
I could see it.
Another good question here comes in about Euron and Dany. Like I mentioned, book Euron is a huge difference from the show.
Such a huge difference.
I think that some of the stuff Night King does in the show might be on Euron's plate in the books. And she's asking, I guess I shouldn't say she, Mini Toast, he or she, or neither, says, how much can he play into the White Walker storyline? That's the thing. So Euron has all this White Walker symbolism. He's got Night King symbolism. Mike, one of the things I do on my podcast is I break down George's archetypes. Like, for example, Azor Ahai and Nissa Nissa turns out to be more than just a myth. He has all the heroes echo these people. Dany does both. She's Nissa Nissa in some acts, Azor Ahai in some scenes. Tyrion has parallels to Lan the Clever. Garth the Green has parallels to Robert. And there's multiple figures that sort of seem to step into the archetypes that George has made. So Night King is an archetype. Roose Bolton plays that role. Stannis plays that role. Even Jon a little bit. And Euron might be the biggest one of all. So Euron has a ton of Night King symbolism. And I'll turn the question back to you two, but what do you think that Euron's sort of, his magic power is rising, his villainy is rising. We know that the others are going to be a big problem. Is there going to be some sort of connection between Euron and the others?
I think he might make it easier for them, right? Because I don't know if what he's trying to set up and do is directly connected to the others, but I do think that whatever he is doing will hurt Westeros and will leave them less prepared for the coming of the White Walkers.
Could he like accidentally open up like not a rift, but the equivalent of that, where he's playing around with his horns and his high tower magic, and he
here's
knocks
the thing.
the ball over accidentally? Or
Look, this is
the comet.
This is what I think about Euron. I think he's been in a lot of different places in the world. He's gathered a lot of different magical knowledge, and he thinks that he knows what he's doing. But he's messing with really probably ancient and esoteric forces that he truly can't understand and that nobody can really grasp and understand. And he's toying with the, like, I don't know, ethereal forces that govern this world. I mean, what if something like whatever Euron's doing is the reason that the seasons are messed up? I mean, it had to be like a magical event brought on by people that threw the seasons off. Because George R. R. Martin said, like a long time ago, that it's unnatural. Something caused this. So what if it was something like what Euron is doing, playing around with all this stuff that he does not fully have a grasp on and that he really can't control? So that's kind of the way I see Euron. I see him as very arrogant, right? He thinks, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be a god, and I'm going to be worshipped. But he could end up, I don't know, like unleashing something or making just things way worse than they already are.
I think it makes more sense that he's the one that breaks whatever the spell is that keeps the whites from being able to cross the wall than magic blue dragon breath.
Yeah, I mean, the dragon melting thing in the show is another one of those things that like looks really cool, but it's like, what? And they never understood. They never freaking explained what that dumb dragon fire was.
Yeah.
Like, is it? I don't know.
I forget who has the horn, right?
Well, we don't know. Melisandre supposedly destroyed it, but then apparently that wasn't the real one, and they never found it. But yeah, Harry Tadler said, Gendry possibly a dragon rider. Baratheons are Targs.
Oh, that's true.
Perhaps. See, that's the thing about like blood. Like, how far is it like diluted over the generations? I think I don't know.
Well, the thing, Quinn, the thing I always look at is, outside of the mechanics, like think about the literary parallels and the roles. Euron is right out of Lovecraft, obviously. And what do characters in Lovecraft do? They meddle with forces they don't understand, and they open up the rifts to let in the old ones and shit. So like, that's what I'm seeing for Euron is like, he might not intend to do what he wants to do, but he has a horn called Dragonbinder, and comets are known as dragons. So I mean, if somebody's going to call down a comet to smash the wall and cause a new long night, I'm just saying, I predicted it, and I could be.
Dude, if a comet hits the wall, I'm going to call you immediately as soon as I read it and be like, I don't even care if you haven't read it yet. And I'm just going to be like, because I'm going to read it in one day.
It's going to blow up. My whole thing's going to blow up. My head blows up, website, server, all of it explodes. Yeah. We'll see.
So, Mike, I didn't know if you wanted to do it in this stream, like, draw a little bit of Tadia stuff.
I can. Let me do something real quick, and I'll come back and do that.
Yeah. So in a minute, Mike is just going to draw some concept art for Tadia, and we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yourself. We're living in a dictatorship, a self-perpetuating autocracy in which the working classes... Oh, there you go, bringing Klaus into it again. Yeah, anarcho syndicus discussion going on in the chat. So
oh, man.
My chat... acting as a sort of executive officer of the week. But all the decisions of that officer must be ratified at a bi-weekly meeting.
I mean, I guess we could real quick talk about some things that we liked about the season. What did I like about this season? I liked at the end.
The Brienne, everything with the Brienne scene was great. It's probably going to happen. We'll get something similar in the books. It was very emotional.
Don't worry, guys. We're going to keep hating. I just want to interject some not so negative stuff. But yeah,
I mean, it really was well done. It was one of those things where there are some things that translate better on screen. The emotion of the actor, and obviously, we have a great actress in this case.
I feel like it was emotional for them in that moment too, because it was like it's like the final season, and it's like I don't know. It seemed like she was feeling a lot of real emotions there. I don't know. To me, it did.
Yeah, it was a great scene. It was well written, well put together. I like how it was very organic.
Ryan Cogman.
Like, what do you mean? I like the best thing is that Tormund saying, "What do you mean you're not a knight? Like that's bullshit."
Yeah.
And everyone looks around. They're like, "You know what? That is bullshit. Let's fix this."
Brian
And then like,
Cogman, right? He's good. Brian Cogman is good. Like it's D&D that suck. All right, I'm here to tell you that. Like it's them. Every time it's their name. Prepare to see some suckiness. Like that episode 2 was the best episode of the whole season, right? I mean, I don't know. It had nothing to do with them. So yeah, that was good. But I also liked Sam having the Song of Ice and Fire book in the end, because my theory is that like it's gonna be Sam that's like writing all that down in the end. He's gonna be like, yeah, this is the book that I wrote, but in the show it's like, oh, I got this from the Citadel or whatever. But yeah, so that was cool. I like that. I feel like Tyrion should be like dead or something. I don't know how Tyrion is still kicking. That was weird. I feel there so many times. I mean, I just feel like Tyrion doesn't deserve to be alive, right? In Game of Thrones, you got to earn your keep. You got to earn your survival on this show, and I feel like these last few seasons he just didn't earn it, right? There were too many situations. Should have had his head chopped off. I don't know. And you know who else should have been dead? Jon, right? So does anybody buy that Grey Worm doesn't kill Jon? That was one of the things that really bothered me too.
well, in that the way they set it up, he definitely should have. But I think that Jon going north of the wall at the end of the show is probably a clue that he's going to be a cold hands type by the end of the books, where he'll be undead. He can't associate with it's like the dark version of Frodo. You know how Frodo can't be among the living because he's tainted or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
It might be similar where Jon is a zombie. He can't associate with people, and he'll be wandering the north as the new Cold Hands forever.
The books cannot end this way. The
No.
books cannot end the way any way
I think
near what they did in the show.
Grey
It
Worm
would kill me.
Grey
What
Worm
do you-
would have
what
chopped
would
his
you
head
prefer
off
for Jon
regardless. I feel like Grey Worm would have chopped his head off, put it on Spike. I don't care if you're undead. I mean, the way they set it up in the show, he should have been dead. He killed the queen. I mean, and Grey Worm, he doesn't have any kind of allegiance to House Stark, House Lannister. He's like, I'm from Essos. I don't care about any of this. Like, so why? I don't, and especially since Jon is just like some guy that he just met like not even too long ago. Kill him. He killed Daenerys. I don't know.
Okay, I'll rescind that in the one sense that if Jon ends up north of the wall in sort of a cold hands role, I would want it to be his choice, not to be like, oh, I mean, you should be, the king and all that stuff. Everybody wants you to be the king, but we're gonna send you to the wall. This is that to me. I don't know. That just goes against his whole story arc.
Most of that last episode was just like walking and staring. It
Yeah,
like really was. I mean, God, I love how it was like, what do I like about it? And I just immediately went back to like everything that I hate about it.
Although knowing George's his writing style, he probably will end. Gosh darn it, it's true, because he started it. He started the whole series north of the wall. He's gonna end it. It's gonna be mirrored. So
Someone said, what happened to the Dothraki
gonna be
after Dany
Jon.
died?
Damn it!
What
I can
happened to
almost
the Dothraki?
guarantee that's gonna happen.
Look, I like to think that the Dothraki integrated into Westeros, and they have families now, married like they all married like nice Westerosi peasant
No, they
women.
just ran through the Riverlands raping everybody.
Like the leftover Dothraki are running amok in Westeros.
That seems to make a little more sense.
I don't know, but they don't have to explain it. They can have them like they just use them to like have them die and then like be reincarnated and die at will. They never even cared. I don't even know if they really even had an idea of how many Dothraki there even were. Right? Do you think? Cause I feel like it fluctuated constantly, Dave and Mike. I mean, it was like I never really understood exactly how many there were. Like, cause how many did Drogo have? 40,000.
Yeah,
100
tens of thousands.
He had tens of thousands. Like, so this is Daenerys is this is like all of them. Like Dany united. I guess there would be some still left over somewhere in Essos, but she united all the Khalasars. Like she killed all the cows. Like this is all of their people. So this is like the big bulk of all the Dothraki. Like,
Yeah, it's probably 500,000.
Yeah, did they all just come to Westeros and die, or like what is? I don't like what exactly is going on here, and I don't think they really knew, so we don't really know as a result because it's not exactly clear.
Yeah, Byrack says in the book they're uncounted 40,000 only in Drogo's horde.
So, Harry Tadler said again, thoughts on the underground worms under Westeros? What?
What?
I mean, there are fire worms in, Fire and
I
Blood.
think he wants you to cross worlds there and put some sandworms under Westeros. There might be weirwood roots under the entire continent though, and they're compared to worms. So
I mean, the fire worms in George R. R. Martin's book, they are kind of like almost slightly. I mean, the Frank Herbert worms don't live in your body, but they do have like a furnace inside of them. It is like heat. They produce heat. They are. So I guess they are kind of like fire worms, and they burrow around. But probably not. Someone's
What am I drawing, Quinn?
okay. So, do you want to do one of Tadia? I thought that would be cool.
Are we redesigning it, or am I basing it on your pre-existing?
It can be like, I mean, you could do like a cool little redesign. I mean, because the one that concept art one is not exactly accurate.
Yeah.
You know.
can one of the episodes be called Lottie Dadia? We like to Tadia.
I just want to say I was upset.
I apologize for that.
I was upset that I had to go to the bathroom while we were still quoting Monty Python because we could have done that for a while.
Oh yeah, Mike absolutely loves Monty Python.
It's one of my, you know how you can I don't know if you guys both use StreamYard, but you can have little clips of stuff, and so some of them are the.
This is my first time hosting a stream on this stream. Yeah, this is my first time hosting a stream on StreamYard. I didn't even know what I was doing at first. I thought
easy.
like Dave's mic was muted, but I just like didn't have him add it to the thing.
Have you gotten the comments to pop up on the StreamYard window on the side?
No, I still don't know how to do it, so I just got a pop-up window.
Yeah,
I mean,
you
it's
just-
right there, but it just there's nothing showing.
You should be able to click on any comment and then,
Yeah.
Go to the
get
comment
it on
section.
screen.
Click on the comments section. It should
Just
populate.
click on the
Oh,
actual
Look,
comment.
I know why it's not doing it.
You have to use the mouse, Quinn, with
No,
the click.
there's a different reason. I just realized it. It's because I'm not streaming from StreamYard. I'm using StreamYard to capture our images, and then I'm streaming from XSplit. That's why.
You have to make it all complex and put an extra step into it, don't you, Quinn?
Yeah. Because I was like iffy on like streaming. I've never used it before, so you got to keep it. You got to keep it. Got to keep it usable. So Mike, whenever you're ready, you can share your screen.
Yeah, I'm just doing sort of a basic
Mhm.
head shape structural thing right now. So
For sure. Yeah, Mike is just drawing a little bit of concept art for my upcoming graphic novel, Tadia.
told you.
Yeah.
Now the problem is in StreamYard. I think if you share my screen, it's. Oh no! Wait, share. I think it'll pop up on the side, and then we're all still on the side.
Yeah. Okay. So like, how do I make you the big
Mike,
one?
if you share your screen, it will simply replace your window. Quinn will have control over
No,
how
not
big
in
the window
StreamYard. Not in StreamYard. I'm sharing my screen, but it'll come up. So, you see there's like 5 different buttons. It's the one
I
with
see it.
like there. That's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't
Ooh,
figure it out. So yeah, Mike is just drawing a little bit of art for Tadia. We're gonna keep talking about Game of Thrones, but I guess I can pimp Tadia real quick.
Do
So you can check the link in the description right now, guys. It has not even been a month, and we already have 1,500 people on this mailing list. It is freaking crazy. Get put on the mailing list for my upcoming graphic novel Tadia, and you can really I have a crazy love for fantasy and good fantasy stories and mythology and all that stuff. So I wanted to tell the story about witches, and I wanted to do world building and create this whole like fictional empire and create all these crazy characters and put twists and turns in it. And like I said before, I know everything that I hate in fantasy and bad fantasy. I know everything that I hated about Game of Thrones and just all the bad fantasy that I read. So I'm trying to not do any of that and to create something that really is interesting and that is like kind of a different take, although I'm like kind of playing in a traditional type fantasy world. And so Mike is now drawing some new concept art of the title character Tadia. Get put on the mailing list, link in the description. Mike won't
Quinn.
actually be drawing the inside of the comic. We're in talks with. I can't say him yet because it's not official, but we're in talk with another artist to do that.
A
Mike will be doing a cover.
fantastic artist.
He is great.
Quinn, what do they get for signing up for your email list?
So if you get it put on the email list, you can get special perks that won't be available by the time that the campaign launches. And when it launches, yeah. So that's a few months out, but yeah, get put in the email list now so you can get early perks and stuff like that. It's really
And will you get like special preview stuff that no one else can get?
You will definitely get special preview stuff that no one else can get, that no one else sees. Actually, the person that was the 1,000th sign up is getting a Tadia print for free that's signed. So yeah, that's happening. So I guess we'll do a similar thing for the 2,000th person that signs up.
Yeah.
All right. But basically, I'm not gonna destroy Tadia the same way that D&D destroyed Daenerys, right?
That's nice of you. The cool thing about what when George rambles on about shit is that he's actually trying to. I really believe that he wants all of us to be better writers. I think he knows that many people in his audience are writing nerds, and that's what he keeps saying: hard in conflict, hard in conflict, hard in conflict. It doesn't matter what tropes you use. If you have a good character with interesting motivations and you derive your story from the choices of that character, you can write a good story. The rest of it does not even matter. Like, that's why he talks about genre the way he does. It's not that there's no difference in genre. He says, okay, one genre has different dressings and settings, and another genre has another one. But at the heart of it all is simply just characters. So you can do tropes, or you can invert the tropes, or do no tropes at all. But as long as you have a good character, then it'll be a good story. That's the whole deal.
I mean, if your characters are solid, that's the characters are what people connect to, you know. And I feel like that's when Game of Thrones started to lose people where it fell flat, is when the characters became progressively more and more and more generic. I mean, people held on to characters like Braun. I don't know, just because he was comic relief or whatever. But to me, I always felt like it's getting tired, right? And this character's not really evolving. He's like the same like guy pretty much. I guess he did evolve in certain ways, right? I guess he became less about himself. But I always thought Braun evolved in ways that were like kind of inconsistent with what we really knew about the character, and definitely a little bit off track of what happened with the book. But there are worse examples than Braun of just them just really just taking characters and just really undoing them in really bizarre ways.
Yeah, like they had him. They had that moment on the Field of Fire where he doesn't go for the gold and he saves Jaime instead. And then next season he's taking gold to kill Jaime.
Yeah,
from Cersei.
And you know, even in that same season, you know, you have you know, I'm not gonna be around when the dragons get there. I'm not helping, and then he's there. He's in King's Landing helping. I'm like, dude, you had the opportunity to run like you said you were gonna run, and you just didn't. So it was just very inconsistent, and it's like they don't really know where they're going. So it's like, so that's the thing.
Well, to be fair, Han Solo did that in Star Wars. So.
Well, I wouldn't know.
Maybe Braun was the Han Solo of Game of Thrones.
God, what are some examples? I mean, it's crazy because it's like every character is like that though. It's like Jon Snow gets progressively worse and worse and dumber. Do you remember the Battle of the Bastards? How stupid it was. We all thought it was stupid then. I know me and you did. Like with him just like charging and like just charging.
The Battle of the Bastards was on the same night that the Warriors lost their championship. The one that they lost to the Cavs after Draymond was suspended in Game 5. Game 7 was so frustrating. They couldn't hit a shot in the last few minutes. And then I watched that show. So I'll never know if my opinion was tainted, but I did not like Battle of the Bastards.
See, look, the episode, it's another one of those things where it like looks super freaking cool. And it's like, I want to like it because I can tell the people that were behind the production put a lot of freaking work into it. But like D&D, you're making everybody else look so bad. You guys need to chill with this terrible writing. All right. So I got a super chat from Gage Dubrasky. To what extent do you guys think George R. Martin has the series planned out? Is it even safe to just assume that Bran will become king or Dany will burn King's Landing?
Good question.
He's planned it out.
So he's said before that he is a mix of a gardener and an architect. You know, that's the way he described it. He said that certain writers, you know, they plant a seed and they just let it grow, and there are certain writers that architect every little thing. He says that he's a mix of both. So we have to imagine that to a certain extent he has it all planned out, like all the main beats. but then also to an extent he's a gardener because you can go back and read like the notes for the original Song of Ice and Fire back in the day, what he had initially thought of. There's a lot of big seeds of what we see in the finalized novels, but it was quite different. Quite different. There's like an incest plot between Arya and Jon Snow. There's like Dany killing Drogo on purpose. There's a lot of like little things that he, I guess, changed or like thought better of. But I think with the process of writing, always it's to some extent just like letting the story just be told through you. Like you put yourself inside of it and just live it out. That is an element to writing, definitely. But you do have to have some degree of planning it out, and George R. R. Martin definitely does. There's no way he could make these like crazy complicated plots that span over 1,000-page books if he didn't.
So George's whole thing, and he definitely says that he skews towards a gardener. But the reason why, it's important to understand the reason why he's a gardener. For him, it's all about retaining some of the mystery and discovering the path as it goes. He knows roughly where he's going, but if it's too planned out, he loses interest in it. That's what he said specifically. So for him, he needs that excitement of discovery. He kind of is like a juggler throwing a whole bunch of balls in the air, and he's not quite sure if he can catch them all, but he's trying. And you can see that with the Marinese knot, he actually rode himself into a corner and struggled with it, and then finally figured out a way around. Mm-hmm. That's part of the excitement, I think, for George, is setting up those challenges for himself and understanding that there's a risk that sometimes you ride into a corner and you have to think of something brilliant to get out of it. I mean, that's part of the excitement of what he's doing as a gardener. So he knows where he's going. And specifically, the question was asking about certain elements. So King Bran, we know that idea came from George. I think it'll be very different because the whole Green Seer magic is so different in the show. And I've got a bunch of King Bran videos on my website if you want to check that out, Lucifer Means Lightbringer. But the Dany stuff seems to have come from D&D. They have said that it was their decision. They thought of the Jon and Dany thing in season 3. It's not completely explicit, but the way they talk about it, they don't say like, oh, well, we were shocked when George told us that Jon kills Dany, which they always do with controversial stuff. Like they kind of own that part of it. So I think King Bran is from George. I think the Dany Jon stuff will be very different.
So just to note, Mike, just her hair is really curly, just so you know.
A little curly. Yeah, I'm trying to think of a style.
More than a little. It's more like, look up like
What? Oh, right.
Yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, I'm talking about my heart. Yeah, it's kind of like she's got natural curls and they're pretty like tight. So that's the deal. But yeah.
All right.
What was the last thing you said, LML? Because I was going to respond to something you just said.
Well, we were talking about gardeners and architects, and I was trying to make the point that George is a gardener, but even a gardener has a plan, I guess is what I was trying to say. Like when gardeners make a garden, they don't just plant things randomly. They group things, and as it goes, they're like, oh, this would look good here. And they want it to look good. There is a plan. It's just more organic and it evolves along the way. I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, George R. R. Martin, like I said, you wouldn't have like these long running plots throughout the books if he didn't have a plan. George R. R. Martin is a genius. I think so. He's playing now. So Astral Walker left a super chat. Bran doing nothing but scouting during the long night was hilarious. I was expecting dragon warging.
Exactly.
Me too.
Knowledge.
Me too. Why can he even warg anything if he wasn't gonna warg a dragon? I don't even know. Like
he didn't even really do anything cool with the ravens. Like at least like fly around the Night King's head and make him annoyed or something.
I thought he was gonna go like fight the Night King or try and like seize control of the dragon or just anything. Like you're this crazy powerful like skin changer. And I know LML, we both have like ideas, and it's definitely true of the connection between like the Green Seers, skin changers, and the White Walkers and all that stuff. So like that all that magic is tied in together. So and we've talked about this before. Like what I see happening in the books is there being a mental battle, right? And I know this would be something that's hard to be portrayed in a show, but I see something taking place.
Check your audio, man.
Is my audio good? Hey. I see something taking place in kind of an abstract plane of existence in the books. And we've talked about this, Dave, and we've talked about that maybe being the werewood net. Where Bran has to face off against the Night King or just the great others, true self, like that true consciousness that's inhabiting it. And that being where Bran's place is in this whole thing. Because you have John, who is being set up to, fight physically. So I could only imagine that Bran is fighting mentally.
The astral plane fight.
Oh, I had so much good headcanon for that. I was like, they're going to kill the Night King, but then he's going to be stuck on the astral plane, and Bran's going to have to go inside the weirwood net and fight him and like burn down that frozen tree in the heart of winter. But
I mean,
none of that.
It would have been so much better than what they did.
He just sat there the whole time.
Yeah.
So here's a good question.
Scouting.
Andrew Mendez asks, do the Children of the Forest rule Westeros now? Kind of. I mean, if you're talking about the show, I mean, kind of in a way. But and Quinn, I know this is one of your favorite topics, so I'll cue this up for you. I'll tee it up for you. So in the books, what I think might end up happening, Quinn, is that there will be a download event, sort of like what we saw on the show, where Bran, like the entire weirwood net hive mind made up of all the dead green seers or whatever that's inside the weirwoods, will actually leave the weirwoods, go into Bran's head, and only live there. And the trees will now only belong to the trees, or the White Walkers will go back to them because that's where the White Walkers come from, the weirwoods. And so the idea of human green seers inside the trees, I think, is an abomination altogether. And I think Quinn agrees with me on this. And I think that part of the role of Bran is going to be to undo that abomination, to take all the human green seer consciousness out of the trees. It's going to go back into his head, and he'll be the last person that has all that knowledge, which is why I think he'll be set up to be some sort of transitionary figure. What do you think?
Can I pipe in that? That kind of makes sense that the White Walkers could actually be sort of a defense mechanism of the trees themselves. Like they have been invaded, not just by humans, but by children of the forest.
Yes.
And then they're like the white blood cells popping out, and that's why they're targeting Bran, and that's why they're coming after him.
That's why Quinn's video about the she is so important, because George describes the others as icy she, which puts them as like vengeful spirits of the land in a sense.
I like the idea of not only men being trespassers, but also the children being trespassers, because you have these trees, and we just assume that that the children have this symbiotic relationship. But what if the trees? I've had this thought too, that the trees are conscious.
My gosh, what if they enslaved the trees?
Yeah, I've had this thought before, that the trees were conscious. I did this theory not too while ago called Blood Trees, where I'm talking about what if the trees have been. What if the children are hurting the trees? I don't know.
I mean, the trees don't look happy, do they?
They don't look happy. They're like screaming and crying and bleeding. And, there is some evidence that the children have done, kind of messed up magic in the past. The World of Ice and Fire was written by maesters, of course. But there is that little part that suggests that perhaps to shatter the arm of Dorne and potentially call down meteorites, perhaps, if you buy into LML's theory, that they, sacrifice their own young to create such a powerful spell. Which, I wouldn't put it past them that, they'd be driven to that point of desperation. I mean, because you can look at the children, I guess, in a couple of ways. You can look at them as like these kind of innocent nature spirits. And I mean, I guess they are that. But that doesn't mean that they are like angelic beings that aren't willing to get dark to protect, their land and what is theirs.
So here's an interesting lineup of sort of mythological purpose, right? Like you're saying, nature spirits are almost never purely benign. They represent nature. And if you trespass and violate nature and cut down the magic tree, the nature spirits get angry and they get riled up and they give you trouble. I mean, that's the same all around the world in folklore. A similar idea is the idea of a mother goddess. And Dany has a ton of mother goddess mythology. All mothers, not just goddesses, every mother in human world, in the nature world, if you mess with a mother's children, you will get the spoon or the umbrella or the boot or the stick or the dragonfly or something. Like mothers protecting their children is nothing you want to mess with. So we've got these parallel ideas of Dany representing the downtrodden and oppressed people everywhere she goes.
Yes.
She is their fury and their rage in a sense. That's how
that's
she's
so good, dude.
dragons. And then we have the White Walkers, and to a lesser extent, just the Weirwoods and the children, potentially acting out this vengeance of nature against mankind. So I'm interested to see how all that comes to the fore. And I love it when the themes are paralleled like that.
Yeah, dude, I totally agree. I totally agree. I mean, yeah, thinking about Danny as the fury of the people is like that's a really good way of thinking about it, for sure. It's not just about, fire and destruction. That's not all that fire represents. Sometimes there is righteous fury. Sometimes there's something to get mad and angry about, to stand up for. I've always said that Danny, one element of Danny's fire is that she represents like rapid change, like the burning fire that's here to, cleanse things and to change things really rapidly and, reshape the world and reforge it. But I got a super chat. Wisdom Marnif says, Wisdom Marnie, I can't see. Says, Minari. I'm wearing glasses and I still can't see. I don't think the children of the forest are good. Bran even questions why they would help man. Man would, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Man would rage and all that line. Man would be wroth and seek bloody
that's kind of what
vengeance.
we were saying, is like the children shouldn't be seen as good or bad in the vengeance in the context of mankind. Like their loyalty is not to mankind. So in that sense, they're not good or harmless. They're totally capable of killing people. They represent nature, and man has trespassed against nature. So we're in a situation where the children definitely might not have mankind's best interests at heart. There's no question.
Right, yeah. And you gotta, yeah, for sure.
They might be trying to bring mankind to a better philosophy so that the land doesn't suffer. I think that's the whole purpose of having human green seers, is they're trying to transfer their philosophy into mankind. But
like you said, they're on the side of nature, and nature is not always on the side of mankind. Nature has vengeance. Nature has rage. All those things, and then nature also has a coldness, right? So when we start to think about the children of the forest, well, the others, as kind of
brutal, dude.
Yeah. So
yeah, but it should be stressed that man trespassed against nature first, both in the real world and in this story.
Yeah.
So I mean, and that's kind of always how it goes.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, when we start to think about the others and what they are, and how George R. Martin like kind of described them as like frozen she. We've talked about this a bunch of times. They represent the vengeance of nature to a pretty significant degree. They're that cold side that's just that will have its way, and it's bitter, and it's death and it's darkness. You know what I mean? But that's a side to nature as much as any of that other stuff. Someone left me a super chat. Elliot, I can't say your last name. They made House Targ look like they were all bad.
Zirzanowski.
They did, in fact, make House... Oh, you said it. Yeah, they did, in fact, make them. Except for Maester Aemon. He was the only one that maintained, I guess, some level of goodness. But, yeah, they show...
Yeah, I was really disappointed they did not connect Jon with his Targaryen heritage at all. I mean, I wasn't disappointed because I didn't have any expectations. But, I mean, in the books, we should expect RLJ to be used as more than just a political wedge device. I mean, Dany and Jon both are alienated from their families in different ways, especially Dany. The idea that they're both Targaryens should be important to them on a family level, I think.
Yeah.
Ooh, wait, someone just said...
the political threat.
Smitty, I think you were responding to someone else. They said that, or they took credit for a natural event and man was dumb enough to believe them. Well, see, that's the thing. I don't think the children necessarily took credit for it. Maybe it was a natural event, but the thing is, mankind thinks they did it. That's just the way the myths and the legends played out. The children of the forest did this. So whether they did it or not is kind of it's not a matter of them taking credit for it, is what I'm trying to say. It's not like they're walking around like, we broke your arm of Dorne, But
so,
yeah.
And I feel I'm looking at the chat here, and I feel like it's a little bit going sideways. Like the whole idea of nature is that it doesn't have morals. It's an environment. This isn't about morality. It's really about intelligence.
Kill or be killed, literally.
Mankind can choose to coexist with nature in a way that is sustainable. So, like sustainable isn't about brownie points. Sustainable is about having a place to live tomorrow. That's all it means. So if you set yourself at war with your own environment, you over farm, you over harvest, you whatever, you will then short circuit your own future because you have set yourself in opposition to nature. So you're basically, nature is just a thing that produces the consequences based on like what you put in, apart from like the random disaster effect.
You know, like,
So
okay.
that's really what we're talking about. And that's what George is writing about here, really, right?
Mm-hmm. And I was going to say, you know, like how you have an environment, like a closed environment. And that's what Westeros was before man got there. It was the children of the forest and the giants and all the other animals. And they were living in pretty much harmony. Like they fought sometimes as animals and whatever fight, you know, whatever. But when mankind got there, they were incapable of coexisting. Like mankind got to Westeros and it was just like the dying of like all these creatures, the unicorns and lions. There's so much that once was that's just gone, right? So that definitely is a big theme of it. And you know, we talk about global warming, right? So it's like you piss off nature, you hurt nature, and it reacts.
Yeah, she's looking good. I like this.
Yes, Tadia's looking good. Those curls are looking good. And if you don't know what Mike is sketching here, what Mike is drawing here, this is the title character for my upcoming graphic novel, Tadia. And I'm so very excited to present it to the world. You can get put on the mailing list, link in the description. It's a fantasy story about witches. It's pretty scary, I think, but you guys haven't seen the script yet. But you can take my word for it. Take my word for it. Cold Butchery. Thank you, Im, for pointing that out. Cold Butchery was how the Lordling prologue died, and the White Walkers appear to have their own set of society. They are not mindless, but they don't care about the morals of men. It adds up really. They probably have their own completely foreign, crazy White Walker set of morals, right? But you know, they do have culture. We've talked about that before. That's what that scene shows, that they do have culture and they have understanding of what a one-on-one fight is. They understood when Waymore was like, dance with me, fight with me. They understood that, okay, we're going to let these two fight. So they are not mindless killers, right? And you know, when Gray Area and I did the Obsidian Knights podcast in that episode on that scene in the opening of Game of Thrones, the book, the White Walker, the one that approaches Waymore, he looks at Waymore's sword and almost pauses a second. So it's like he's considering it, and we kind of had this idea that maybe the White Walker, the other, was looking at the sword and thinking, is that Valyrian steel? And then seeing that it wasn't, he steps forward. So he was so perhaps they already knew about it and they were cautious from the get-go. But yeah, they're not mindless. Sorry if they got a little bit rambly, but they're not mindless. They are not mindless indeed. And George R. Martin has said, too, that in the Winds of Winter, we'll learn more about the nature of the White Walkers. I think it'll become much clearer, or at least clear to some extent, what they actually desire and why they're doing what they're doing.
Well, at least we'll actually get some answers.
Yeah. But you know George R. Martin, he's all about subtlety. He's not just going to spoon feed it to you. You're going to have to pay attention and look and see.
Right.
And really try and absorb it. Because a lot of times with writing, certain things can be absorbed subconsciously before you're consciously aware of them. I mean with reading. Like a lot of times authors leave things in plain sight that your mind picks up on subconsciously, but you're not like aware of until, I guess, reading the book later and it'll click. And I feel like that a lot of times reading George R. R. Martin's books. And I like it when that happens. And that's, I guess, the value of being subtle with your writing. Because you have authors that you'll be reading a book, and then there's always that scene where it's like everyone gets together, and this is what the deal is. This is what's going on. And Game of Thrones totally had that moment because D&D are hacks. So it's like you remember the scene where it's like Sam and Bran, and they all get together like, this is what the deal is, yada, 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 yada. George R. R. Martin's not going to do that, where everyone gets together and breaks it all down. That's like tropey, hacky, I can't write nonsense, right? But, yeah.
Because they probably looked at each other and they're like, what is happening here?
That's a good voice, man. You got to use that more.
Yeah. But can we talk about their explanation for Bran, too? And why the Night King wanted him and how it makes no sense? Right? How it's like, Bran is the memory of man. But then, what does happen if he dies? Mankind doesn't just stop existing. I don't.
So this is the whole thing. If Bran has the Weirdwood downloaded into his head, we're going to need someone to write down everything that he knows for the next 40 years, and conveniently we have Sam to do that. So that's the whole like Song of Ice and Fire. Like it's the entire Weirdwood history of the world.
But when it comes to the show, it's like it can't make sense because it's like, it's just so much wrong. They don't care. They don't care, or they didn't care. It was clear.
There's somebody asking for Green Men theories in the chat.
Green Men theories. You got some Green Men theories, don't you? No, you do.
George has said that we're going to get to see the Isle of Faces before the story's over. And if you look at the first 2 books, there's a lot more foreshadowing of the Isle of Faces back when George thought it was going to be like a trilogy or a 5-book series.
There is.
I think that on the Isle of Faces, the Green Men are like some sort of old race of creature. You know, like there's a lot of people in Westeros that want to imitate this idea of a stag man, like a Cernunnos thing. The Baratheons all have antlers. They have the Garth tradition and the Reach. And I think that the truth behind all that stuff is basically the Green Men. And George will probably just give us a little fleeting glimpse of them. But they might be the Wood Dancers of the Children of the Forest, or they might be like a cousin race. You know, I mean, any of those things could work for me. But there'll be some OG Greenseers, and probably Bran will contact them, maybe through a Weirwood dream. But I can't wait for that. And I do have a couple of videos. I'll drop them in the chat real quick.
So do you think... I don't know if I've ever asked you this. Do you think there are children as well as Green Men on the Isle of Faces?
I would think so, but
I think so.
I mean, whatever George wants, really, you know?
Yeah, I think there probably are, because they do it one way in the show where it's like this tiny group of children inside of this tree are all that's left. But I've always felt like there's got to be like a couple more of them somewhere, right? This can't be just like it. And I think there's got to be a few more. Because, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being wishful, because in the show they just introduced them and killed them in 2 episodes, but...
Yeah, that was dumb.
Oh, would you look at this, Quinn? My episode on the old ones, it has you on it.
Oh,
so
yeah.
If you guys want to check that out, you will see a familiar face.
Definitely check that one out. Link in the description. Also, check out Mike Miller's channel. Link in the description. LML's channel is also linked in the description. Yeah.
Yeah, Quinn has been on my channel almost every night for like the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, like I'll be up, and then like he'll be streaming. I'll pop on for a couple hours and say,
Dude, you were on for 5 hours the other night.
I was, right? What was I even doing?
I
was just staying up.
Feel free to talk about whatever you want there, so that's what's fun about it.
Yeah. Do you think Sartorius might be involved? I don't think it is involved. I don't think so any more than like something tangential, right? And that's how I feel pretty much about all like the little like edge continents, mostly tangential stuff. So I think George R. R. Martin might want to tell stories, maybe about those places in the future, perhaps. But as far as them affecting the main, series in any significant way, I don't think so.
It's basically there as a place that Euron can refer to if he needs to pull out some super weird thing or person or creature. He'd be like, oh yeah, I got that on Sartorius.
Yeah. I love the World of Ice and Fire and reading about all those places. I feel like I want another World of Ice and Fire book, right? Just like a new one, because I've exhausted all the information in that one, and I love the art in it.
By the way, people are asking about Obsidian Knights, man. I got love for you.
Obsidian Knights. Okay, so Obsidian Knights is the podcast that I started with Gray Area last year. It's been on hiatus for a while, but we do have one episode coming in the works. But I've been super busy, guys, like crazy busy, like editing and putting together my Ultimate Guide to Chapter House Dune, working on this graphic novel, just the everyday videos that I've been putting out. I'm probably going to go back to school and get a master's degree. So a lot of stuff is going on. But yeah, Obsidian Knights will be back. What'd you say?
I said, don't forget about The Sims.
Don't forget about The Sims. You plan The Sims a bunch, ignoring responsibilities.
My friend, you have a talent for drawing dark, curly hair.
It looks good, right? It's looking legit. And again, this is the title character of my graphic novel upcoming, Tadia.
Lottie Dottie, we like to Tadia.
Exactly.
We don't go double. We don't.
You know, if you're really smart, you can figure out what the name Tadia means. A lot of the names in my series have secret meanings, and also not so secret meanings that are on the surface that you could easily research. But yeah. Anyways,
How
yeah,
old are you, Dave?
he's 26.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're young too.
No, I'm kidding. He's not
You
26.
young whippersnappers and all your YouTubings.
I'm lying. Dave isn't actually 26.
Oh.
I have no idea how old he is. I think he's like 400 or something. He's like an eldritch being. I'm talking about you, Dave. Okay, what Maud Mary says. How do you think will be the who do you think will be the POV in the Winds of Winter prologue? Love you guys. Didn't
Well,
George R. R. Martin say that the Westerling, not Westerling,
Yeah,
Rob-
that's what
what the
people are
Westerling
thinking,
girl.
that it's going to be something having to do with that
Mhm.
plot.
Yeah.
The Westerling freeing the Blackfish
hmm
stuff.
So we'll
Stoneheart,
see,
Revenge
because
against the phrase.
when it comes to prologues, it
Wag
could,
2.0.
yeah. When it comes to prologues, it could be anybody, right? George R. R. Martin.
I'm pretty sure it's going to be Edmure Tully.
Yeah, maybe that'd be interesting. Maybe he's like in a cell or it's like somewhere like, oh, Edmure, this is what became of me.
No one will take care of you.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh, so yeah.
You
So
know
what
what I
was-
really liked was the first Reek chapter.
I was just
because,
gonna say,
like,
yeah.
it took me a minute to figure out that was Theon. You know.
The way it unfolds, it's so interesting. And I've always felt like, so you got the show version of Ramsay, who to me is kind of just more like a cartoon villain, just like, I'm evil. But then you got the book version of Ramsay, and I'm like legitimately afraid of that version of Ramsay, right? He's got like the pale skin and the pale eyes, and it's just like, there's something about him that's just evil, right? I sense just pure evil. Whereas I look at the show Ramsay, and it's more like, I don't even like I guess the only way I can describe it is like cartoonish. It's like a cartoonish evil, whereas in the books, there's a more sinister evil, right? I think, and I'm not gonna say. I think it was because to me I felt like Ramsay in the show went overboard with them trying to make him like the new Joffrey. That we got to find someone that's as cruel as Joffrey, and we got to like show him just being cruel every single day, and we really got to overdo it and push it constantly. And I just thought like, it's overdone, and it's kind of like not effective. And then also that scene where he kills his dad, I also thought was like, kind of cringy, because it was like the most cliche, like, oh, give me a hug, father, stab, and I'm just like, But then I guess perhaps they were trying to echo the Robb Stark stabbing, perhaps. I don't know. It just didn't work for me. A lot of the Ramsay stuff didn't.
He was creepy though.
He was creepy to an extent, but I felt he lacked a certain degree of creepiness that existed in the books. Book Ramsay makes me think of Vlad the Impaler, someone says. And I think that might be some of George R. R. Martin's bases, because, you have the Boltons and they're like skinning people. You got Vlad the Impaler, who
Right.
the name Dracula comes from, the dragon, because he, supposedly ate his lunch beside impaled bodies, and he was like all into it. So that does seem like a pretty big part of the influence. And of course, everyone knows the Roose Bolton immortal vampire theory.
Wait, what?
You don't know about the Roose Bolton immortal vampire theory?
It's called Bolt On, basically.
Bolton. Yeah, it's like they
Apply
every-
directly to the forehead.
Yeah. it's like the idea that he's like an immortal, and he's like he wears skin of people, of his like son or somebody, and that's how it's the same guy, really. I don't know. To me, it's pretty far out there. I don't think it's really supported by evidence. But okay.
Well,
Did Mary Ellen come up with this theory?
Well, the thing about it is that the mechanics are there in the book. So, like,
Mhm.
Faramir's Six Skins shows us that a skin changer can body snatch people if he's strong enough. Faramir
Yeah.
doesn't succeed, but he tries, and he almost does. So,
Mhm.
a very powerful skin changer could potentially steal people's bodies, and you could imagine like one person just stealing a new body when it wears out over and over and over and over again. But I don't think that's. I think George might be softly implying some sort of Dracula thing there, but I don't think he's ever gonna like bring that up.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's more like, I think the whole Bolton thing is they are like more like based off of Vlad the Impaler, and not like without cut out any of like the supernatural vampire stuff. You know, just like the actual like historical figure.
Yeah, but I wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah.
He does seem to want to put every genre
He does.
that he's ever read in that story.
And see, that's the thing. You know, like some people think that A Song of Ice and Fire is like a song is like science fiction and stuff, and that's really because they've gone back and like looked at George R. R. Martin's older work from the A Thousand Worlds universe, and seen like the similarities and seen like the similar ideas, and so they feel like, oh, this must be in the same universe. But it's like, no, he took these ideas from like his short stories and all these other stories, because A Song of Ice and Fire is intended to be his main like big thing, his magnum opus, you know. So he's putting all his awesome ideas in it. Wisdom Minari said he killed his dad the same way John killed Danny. Right? Ugh, I didn't even think about that. Danny's death. Ugh, what a... Right? Danny's death was such a joke, right? She just... For someone that just burned down an entire city, and for someone that was just talking about how she wanted to take over the world, for her to just break down and cry and beg John to be with her, which is really disappointing, right? I mean, if you're going to go in a certain direction, stay there. Don't like revert. It's totally inconsistent. That's the problem. John McNair says, thank you, Quinn. I think Rasputin is Rasputin, who was rumored to be immortal and came back from the dead. That's pretty interesting. You know,
he did.
Anastasia. You know, I heard a lot of the mythos surrounding Rasputin has been exaggerated. You know, they say they shot him and drowned him and all that stuff. I don't know. I've heard conflicting tales. Mary Evans says Starks are werewolves and Boltons are vampires. I mean, actually, kind of. The Starks are kind of werewolves. Like, wouldn't you agree, LML? I mean, to an extent, in the sense that werewolf means man, wolf. Like George said, all the Stark children are wargs. They can warg into their wolves, so in a way, they are werewolves. Especially Arya, because it's like Arya, literally at night, she's going to sleep and waking up as a wolf.
Yeah.
So she's totally a werewolf. Arya's a freaking werewolf. That's an interesting way to think about it.
So I've been having a little running discussion with somebody in the chat about Danny.
I have been watching.
This person is correctly pointing out that Danny is occasionally reckless when she's got the interests of her people in mind. Like, for example, when she went out amongst all the plague victims and the sick people, the refugees that she had collected on the way, through Slaver's Bay.
Mm-hmm.
It's unclear how much disease immunity the Targaryens have. They seem to have some, but not total immunity. So technically, Danny didn't. It's hard to know what she thought of as her own level of risk there, but clearly she was taking some level of risk, and it was basically just to, make people feel better, not just feel better, but to give them hope. Let's say
to give them hope. That's important.
So I guess what I'm saying that's interesting is that this person is pointing out that Danny's a good person, but that's not necessarily the wisest decision, because if you get a disease and die, then you can't do anything, can't help anybody. And I think that's accurate. I think that Danny isn't ultimately destined to rule, quote unquote. I think we should see her more as a liberator, as a cleansing fire, like you were saying, Quinn. Yeah. She's coming to set things right, to tear down old edifices that need to be torn down. She's not necessarily the one who's going to rebuild everything. Even in Meereen, she does actually plant trees. You know how they say dragons don't plant trees? Mm-hmm. She actually does.
She does, yeah.
But she's not going to be around to see them grow. Mm-hmm. So to the extent that she creates, it'll be something that she leaves as a legacy. Because I see her dying in the final battle, probably self-sacrificial.
We know that Dany's adventures in the East before she gets to Westeros, this is all for her to grow, right? Because the way George R. R. Martin initially thought about it is he was going to have a time jump. He was going to I forget exactly where it takes place, but it's like time jump, and then Danny has been in the East for like years or something, and then the dragons are older. So that's initially how it was. But then he went back and thought, no, I have to write this. I have to show how this happens. So Danny is being shaped into the person that she will become, essentially. She's gaining necessary skills for what she must do in the future. And it's kind of like she has to be thrown into chaos in order to grow and evolve, because she gets super comfortable, I guess, in Marine, kind of. And then it's like the character needs to be thrown into, like, kind of like slapped back to where you were. Like, go back to the Dothraki Sea, start back, revert, and now get back on track to what you really need to do, right?
So, Quinn, I agree. And I just want to make sure you don't miss this. Saswad Mishra in the chat points out that apparently Tadia means identification in Hindi, which is really cool. That's definitely something you could use as a theme, because identity is a very interesting theme.
And actually, yeah, her identity is a big part of my story.
Did you plan that, or is that some serious?
No, Tadia has another meaning that's a part of it. But yeah, that's a cool one that I might actually have to incorporate into some of, what I'm doing here for sure.
Someone should ask her, like, for identification of some kind.
Can I have some ID? She's like, I'm a lord's daughter. Like, what? I don't know.
Badges? We don't need no stinking badges.
But by the way, Mike, you are killing it. And you guys can see, like, right here how incredible, like, Mike is. He is an absolutely fantastic artist. And you got to check out his channel. He's doing streams every day. Check out his comic, Lone Star. You can find all those links in the description. I'm sure you can find all the links to his content on his channel. It's all in the description.
Yes, subscribe to me.
Yeah.
And guys, I'm having a stream this Saturday night, 6 Eastern, on the Lucifer Means Lightbringer YouTube channel. It will be covering Dany's Storm of Swords chapters, which means her conquest of Slaver's Bay, her taking the Unsullied from the Good Masters and turning them against them. We're going to talk about Dany's use of power and some of the stuff we just were talking about, how, the way that she uses her dragons, the way she looks at ruling and slavery and liberation, all that kind of stuff. So 6 Eastern on my Lucifer Means Lightbringer YouTube channel this Saturday, and we'll be doing that.
You know what's crazy? And I was thinking about this the other day, right? Because, like, every time that I'm like, oh my god, Game of Thrones was so bad, and I say something about it, you got people that are like, get over it. Stop talking about it, let it go. And I'm like, you know what? I would love if I could just be like, oh my god, Game of Thrones was so good. It gave me everything that I needed. They killed it. It was awesome. It was amazing. It was perfect. It was great. Or even if I could just be like, it was good. It didn't do everything I wanted, but they hit all the right beats and it was good. I would love to be able to just say that. But I can't, because there's so much that's wrong. D&D's terrible writing and their terrible understanding of the characters and their terrible understanding of George R.R. Martin's 8th grade book report themes, as they call them, led to this freaking abomination. And it's so god dang annoying that I can't fully enjoy the really epic and great parts of Game of Thrones, because you have these two crazy privileged dudes that just stumbled on this and
Isn't that the
were
worst
able
part?
to fail upwards.
You can't enjoy the good stuff anymore because you know how soured it is at the end.
Yeah, right?
It's like, I can't go
Takes the
back
wind out.
and watch Lost again just because of the last episode.
Freaking
You know?
Lindelof.
Just freaking ruined the whole thing for me.
He made me feel better. I kind of forgave Lindelof with Watchmen, though. Like, I really dug Watchmen, so I was like, okay.
Oh, did you hear they canceled the next season of Watchmen?
They were never going to do it.
Well, so they just made an announcement that HBO is not going to, quote, pursue one, since Lindelof doesn't. But
Yeah.
Lindelof, right from the get-go, said, I have no plans for a second season. The only way I'd ever do it is if I had some idea, which I currently don't have. By the way, that's a pretty good, ethos for artists. Don't make art unless you have a reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah. He never wanted to do it, which I admire. I admire when someone's like, I just want to tell one story and then that is it. Because I feel like a lot of times when stuff gets stretched out into multiple seasons when it's not supposed to be, it starts to suck. It's like The Handmaid's Tale. I liked that first season. And then when they started stretching it out and adding in a bunch of crap, it's just like, now this sucks. This sucks now because you're stretching it. Like, someone has an idea. They're passionate about it. They want to tell this story. They strike lightning in a bottle. It's great. It's awesome. I don't understand why you feel the need to like keep putting stuff in that and to continue it and inevitably make it worse because it's uninspired.
You
just stop.
described the entire problem with the whole comic book industry.
It just keeps going and going and going
Yeah,
and going.
it's like
And then they got to reset.
it's great if you have like inspired ideas for Spider-Man, but the fact that and I worked in this industry for 28 years. The fact is, you've got editors who most of them don't know how to frickin' write, so they don't know good writing from bad, and their whole purpose is to get a book done every month. So they'll just look for any writer who's not busy, who they know, who they're friends with usually, and then they'll slap any artist on it just to maintain that schedule. And you ended up, rather than inspired stuff, well, once in a blue moon you get inspired stuff.
Yeah, there's both things out there, and it's not.
Yeah.
It's
But
okay to have the low hanging fruit and the lighter
I
entertainment.
like some
stuff,
stupid
But it's
stuff.
bad. Light entertainment is one thing.
Yeah.
Bad storytelling, bad writing.
for sure.
There's
Irritating.
definitely some stupid stuff that I
You
like.
get something like Watchmen, which is highly intentional, finely crafted, thought provoking, groundbreaking,
crap.
all that stuff.
Inspired.
So super chat. How do you think Roos and Ramsey will die in the books? Really hate how Roos was sidelined after season 3 in the show in favor of Ramsey. I think Ramsey could potentially kill his dad 100%. Yeah, I think Ramsey could potentially kill Roos in some way. It wouldn't be like how it is in the show. But as far as Roos dying, I'm banking on John. Thinking John, or perhaps I'm thinking John. That's what I'm really thinking. John takes out Roos.
I could see Ramsey killing Roos somewhere in the Winterfell madness.
Did I say Roos? I meant Ramsey. Yeah, Ramsey taking out. I think John will take out Ramsey, and then Ramsey takes out Roos. But Mike, can I just say that I'm almost tearing up looking at this art because this is the most accurate depiction of Tadia that's been drawn so far as to how she is in my head. So it's seeing her kind of come to life. It's just I love it.
We're having a moment here, guys.
And you're just
Breathe.
killing
Breathe.
it right now.
Breathe. That's all right.
Yeah, I'm pretty impressed. Mike from LoneStarComic.com.
Oh, thank you.
It's not bad.
So is anyone going to become a full power warg like Varamir? I mean, John is more powerful than Varamir, and then definitely is Bran. So
And don't forget about Arya.
Arya.
Who can warg into her wolf from across the narrow sea.
Yeah.
And has been doing it for years. She's already warging cats.
accidentally, without even trying.
Yeah.
Just like-
So by the time Arya comes back, she's going to be a very powerful and wild and vengeful, angry warg. So that's going to be trouble. To the extent we see Rickon come back from Skagos, he's been hanging out with cannibals.
Oh my God.
And he has a childhood that matches Varamir's very closely.
Can you imagine the Stark children, badass little wizards, basically? I want to see, because George R. Martin is not restrained by the budget, so he can do the wolf pack, and it's I don't gotta do this half step where you just have them show up and then disappear for no reason. I want the wolf pack so bad, man. I want Arya. I want that Stark children magic, man.
Well, I mean, Smitty, Arya is definitely going to have a level of control. I mean, that's what she's learning. She's not just pure rage and vengeance. I mean,
Yeah.
she's learning a great deal of control and precision. So I think that her control of the wolf pack will be very precise and targeted. And I also think Bran and Arya could collaborate, controlling the wolf pack and the ravens together. And there's going to be a lot more of that freaky warg king shit in Winds of Winter and A Dream of Spring than we saw in the show. So,
But Arya, I mean, correct me if
Power
I'm wrong,
wargs, I think you'll be happy.
doesn't Arya just think she's having dreams?
She does right now.
Well, I mean, it's a little ambiguous. Like I said, she skin changes the cat pretty intentionally in order to spy on.
When she realizes what's happening.
I forgot all about that.
But look, on the thing of consciousness, right? Bran is already training to hone his power. So I can only imagine that George R. Martin is showing us how strong Varamir Six Skins is to kind of prepare us for how really strong Bran will be, right? So, like, if you think that what Varamir is doing is impressive with his bear and his shadow cat and his eagle and his 3 wolves, think about what Bran will be able to do. If Bran is so powerful that the Children of the Forest themselves literally, like, called him to sit their throne, and Varamir can do this, wow. I think we haven't even seen the peak of what Bran can actually do and, like, the level of his actual potential and power.
Yes, Arya's already commanding the wolf pack. In fact, I noticed when I did a reread for Warg stuff that when they're escaping Harrenhal, she has a wolf dream, and it's basically her using Nymeria and the wolf pack to eat the bloody mummers who are chasing them. And it's only halfway conscious and intentional, but she's been using that wolf pack since she left Westeros. She's continued to use that wolf pack through Nymeria while she's in Bravos. So, like, she's going to have total perfect control of it when she gets back.
Didn't she use it? It started before Westeros, right? Before she left, because
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
When she was fleeing Harrenhal, she used Nymeria and her wolves to eat the bloody mummers who were chasing them.
she drug Catelyn out of the river. Like, she literally drug her own mother out of the river. Yeah. So, yeah. So at I feel like she's probably definitely aware of the fact that she is seeing through Nymeria on some level, but maybe she doesn't fully understand exactly what is happening. I can imagine that it would be very confusing because she has, like, kind of no context for what is going on.
I would just think it would feel like lucid dreaming. You know?
But I'm sure she can. I think she can feel it to some extent what's happening because she feels a profound
Like,
connection
wake up with
to
the taste of blood in her
Nymeria.
mouth?
I think so.
Yeah, again, all her experiences with the wolf pack are during dreams, but the cat is a step forward.
It's a lot-
She
yeah.
wargs the cat or skin changes the cat. I get some really pedantic people on YouTube.
I know,
scolding
dude.
Me about the
I know
difference.
how it is. I
Like,
know.
she skin changes the cat
Yeah.
intentionally while she's awake. So
Yeah.
that's a breakthrough.
Absolutely. So, Alexei Sarov says, "Thanks for the content. If you ever decide to watch The Witcher, please read the first couple of books first. Really interested in your take and with full perspective." I definitely do want to read the books first because I've heard that the show is pretty good. That's what I've heard. But I want to read the books so I have, like, more context because I've read the game. I mean, basically read the game because it's like there's a bunch of, like, cutscenes, but whatever. I want to read the books and then watch the show. Yeah. That's what I intend on doing. But I got a lot of stuff on my list right now. A lot going on. So, how do you think Lady Stoneheart will play out in the larger story? Well, we'll see. We'll see. Because, there's...
She'll exist.
We'll see. I mean, I think her being undead might be some factor in it, considering that, the White Walkers are coming. Because her whole thing is, like, I guess, vengeance for House Stark. But then she's also been wrapped in with Thoros of Myr, who is a Red Priest. And in the show, I mean, I don't want to rely on what the show did, but in the show, they do start to kind of tie that whole thing in Thoros of Myr into the plot with the White Walkers. Because he is a Red Priest, so it does make sense that if the Red Priest, if R'hllor is allowing his power to be used through Thoros, that he has some kind of ultimate plan for that. And I think that the fact that Catelyn Stark, an undead woman, has been put in charge of the Brotherhood Without Banners, I don't think that is a coincidence. So I'll just leave it at that for now. Do you have any thoughts on that, LMO?
Yeah, Stoneheart's primary purpose in the next book will be to orchestrate the revenge against the Freys.
Okay.
That's what she's using the Brotherhood to do, and there will be horrible, horrible retribution for the Freys. Her hanging Merit Frey was only the beginning.
Yeah.
It's likely that her end will come from Arya, it would seem, because she needs the gift of mercy worse than anybody I've ever seen, Stoneheart. And Arya gives the gift of mercy. So that could be a touching, really, really, like, heart-pulling scene.
It really makes sense for Arya too, because you have Arya, she takes on, to an extent, her mother's identity. When she goes to Essos, she starts calling herself the Cat of the Canals. It's kind of as homage to her mother. So she's taking on a certain degree of her own mother's persona. So I think it is incredibly poetic to have Arya be the one that comes and undoes her own mother, the undead shell, well, what's left of her. So that's a fascinating idea, but they didn't care in the
One thing I
show.
will say about Stoneheart that's interesting is that as of the end of A Dance with Dragons, we had Jamie going down into Stoneheart's cave, led by Brienne,
Yes.
which means all in the same place. So we have Stoneheart, a being that exists on fire magic,
Mm-hmm.
Jamie, Brienne, and Oathkeeper, with my phone
Oathkeeper.
keeper standing in for Oathkeeper here. And so there is a very small chance that Stoneheart's end could be coming in that cave, and that somewhere in the sword fight we'll see Oathkeeper plunged into her magically fiery heart, and we'll get a Lightbringer, we'll get a flaming sword. But that's mostly tinfoil. It probably won't happen. I just wanted to say it.
Oh, that's an interesting thing, right? I didn't even think about this.
I
And
mean,
maybe this has already been answered. Do you think that Beric Dondarrion, if he had been stabbed with a Valyrian blade, that he would not have been able to return? You know what I mean? Would that have like hindered it? I don't know how exactly.
catch fire, because we've seen that Beric's blood can
Can light a sword.
on fire.
Uh-huh.
Stoneheart has the same
Yeah.
lore blood that Beric does, so Stoneheart should be capable of lighting a sword on fire.
Mhm.
And we have a Valyrian steel sword sitting in that cave, and Jamie is like an Azor Ahai type of dude. So I mean,
Interesting. Someone says, "Why am I seeing a woman's chest?" Well, you are seeing the chest of Tadia.
Tadia, the heroine of Quinn's graphic novel.
Heroine. Well, she is the leading character. She is the title character. Tadia. Sign up on the mailing list. So it's a horror graphic novel about witches. I'm really excited about it. I think it's really good. I'm excited to unleash it onto the world. And hopefully I can teach a lot of people about, mythology and also entertain everybody. I don't want to destroy female characters like David and Dan did. Or just destroy characters in general. So, yeah, get put on that mailing list. Link in the description. George R. R. Martin needs
Thanks
to...
for having me on, and yeah, Tadia looked amazing. This is it's got a cool look. I just
Yeah.
love the idea that she's some sort of like immaculately conceived witch child that nobody quite understands like what she can do. Like that's where you hooked me in the summary.
Yeah, I mean, the mystery...
Pitch it, Quinn,
Mhm.
pitch it.
Yeah, I mean, okay. So, yeah, we're getting ready to go in not too long, so I'm going to pitch Tadia. So, yeah, so the whole deal with Tadia is that... Okay. So, as I said earlier, I created this entire fictionalized kingdom called Marath, and I took elements from different types of mythology, different pieces of mythology from all around the world. I settled a bunch on Celtic mythology, and basically I wanted to create this fantasy world with like some recognizable fantasy tropes so that I could play in it. But I also wanted to take a lot of these, typical ideas and kind of turn them on their heads and, do some new and interesting things that I don't see being done a lot in the fantasy genre. And also I've always had like this crazy, inexplicable love for witches. I love witches. I love everything about witches. Yeah, I just love the thought of like a magical, empowered woman that can affect things from afar. And, and I also love horror. And horror is another thing that I feel like has been lacking in recent years. So I took two of the things that I love a lot, or three of the things I love a lot, the fantasy genre, witches, and then horror, and put them into Tadia. And we're going to release it. Right now we're thinking about it in 3 volumes. The first one is coming out this year. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and we're not ready to announce who exactly will be drawing all the art for the internal book, but he is an excellent artist.
We're trying to get the mailing list in the description, by the way, for the people who are asking.
Oh, I dropped it. It's in there.
yes.
Up to about 5,000 people before we launch, or before Quinn launch. I'm just helping. I'm not.
Yeah.
not my job.
We're at 1,500 already. It has not even been a month, and we're at 1,500 people on the mailing list. Tadia was trending. Tadia, I think it still is. It was the number one. Last time I looked, it was the number one upcoming creative work on Indiegogo. And that's just because of you guys signing up for it. And so I can't even imagine what it'll be like in a few months when more people are on the mailing list, and then we can launch it and then like get it out there, and and
Nice.
it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be
That's
awesome.
awesome to see, guys. Just everybody supporting Quinn like that. That's friggin' awesome. Good job.
Awesome. And like I said, guys, check out LML. Lucifer means Lightbringer. We got our podcast episode coming up on my channel pretty soon. LML, let the people know where they can find you.
Lucifer Means Lightbringer is the only thing you need to remember. Just
Yes.
type it in. You'll find my YouTube channel, find all my stuff. The podcast is called Mythical Astronomy, but you can find all that at lucifermeanslightbringer.com. So there you go. Like I said, what I'm doing right now is going through the books, looking for endgame foreshadowing. Want to give people hope that the books are not train wrecking towards the same bad ending that the show is. A lot of people have lost hope and are almost all given up on hope of TWOW and all this stuff. So my channel right now, talking about King Bran and now Daenerys, and it's all about endgame foreshadowing and what these endings will look like in the books. Doing a live stream this Saturday at 6 Eastern on the Lucifer Means Lightbringer channel. We're going to cover Dany's Storm of Swords chapters. And I did a stupid video about Rhaegar and The Witcher that was really fun. And
So
I'm going to
good.
share that in the description as well, in case you missed that.
Can I just say, if you're not subscribed to LML, please subscribe to his channel. Like, there's so many people that talk about Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire on YouTube and on the internet that just have no idea what they're talking about. And, like, LML is one of the most knowledgeable people that I know in this entire community. Like no joke, no seriously. Like, he's taught me so much. Like, just about, like, mythology and just, like, all this stuff. Right? So, please subscribe to LML. And, yeah. He's a dear friend of mine, and I'll be visiting him pretty soon and where he lives now. But yeah, Mike, let the people
Right on.
know where they can find you. Talk about Lone Star and all the
You can
goods.
find me at Art of the Hero with Mike S. Miller. That is my YouTube channel. I'll actually be drawing. I'm going to start a drawing stream after this, and I imagine Quinn will show up at some point because he's been there like every night. But yeah, LoneStarComic.com or Lone Star, the link in the description. That is my comic book. It's my modern take on superheroes, but it's with more of a modern sensibility than just men running around in tights. But it's the foundational book of my universe I'm going to be doing, called Blacklist Universe, and it's 10, 15 years from now, I hope to be competing with the big boys,
Oh, yeah.
Marvel and DC. But right
Marvel
now,
is about to be shook.
very beginning on Indiegogo, you can get signed editions of the books and special stuff, and check it out if you like my art here. Yeah, this is.
I mean, come on. Look at that. Look how beautiful that is. Like, that is Tadia. Like, she just... That's why I love, really good artists. Because, like, the character just came to life in front of me. And it's just like... When I said earlier that I was, like, on the verge of almost tearing up when I just, like, saw him start to shade her in and stuff, I was just like... Because that's my character! There she is! I'm so excited. God. Thank you so much, Mike, for joining me, as always. Yes.
Awesome.
And get put on the mailing list for Tadia, guys. We're going to go ahead and get out of here. I got to let these guys go back to their lives. I don't have a life, so I can just, like, kind of hang around for, like, forever. But everybody else has a life, so.
Dave.
Yep.
I'm going back to work on Danny stuff. So, yeah, have me. Nice to meet you, Mike. This is looking awesome. Continue to build the hype. Everybody sign up for the mailing list and continue to support Quinn. Woo! Nice.
And peace out, guys.
Peace.
Aloha.
Peace.